Okay, the hour of 6 o'clock is upon us, so we're going to go ahead and begin our regularly scheduled City Council meeting. Today is May 21st, 2024. I'd like to welcome everyone out to our last City Council meeting in these chambers. So we're excited. Our next council meeting, just so you're aware, will be at the new City Hall location. So we're excited for that change, and to return this over to our great police chief who's in the back to do with it what he will. These chambers, just talking about leaving here and leaving it to you. So we're excited for that and those changes. So yes, Councilor.
Can we take a piece of carpet on the way out?
And sign it and take it with you. So we could maybe do that as a fundraiser to raise some money. So, but anyway, so yes, glad to have you all here this evening. So we begin our meeting with an invocation offered by Pastor Tony Bemanin of the Centennial Baptist Church. Tony, it's great to see you here today. You do so much for our community, so appreciate you being here for that. So if you please stand for the prayer and then remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you on this primary voting day here in our state for our public servants who serve in so many capacities, and especially here in our city. We thank you for the public servants and all of the things that they do to make this such a beautiful and safe place. And we pray that tonight that you would be with the mayor and the city council and all of those who will be involved in this meeting, that you would give wisdom and clarity, and that you would provide them with results that would be honoring to our city and honoring to you. We thank you most of all for Jesus Christ and the salvation we have through his blood. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much for being here, Tony, and really do mean that. You do so much in your church for this community, so appreciate all you do. You have a good night. Okay, Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Doty?
Here.
Stoddard?
Here.
Register? Here. Dittenberg? Here. Allgood?
Here.
Williams?
Here.
Very good. So all council members are accounted and present and accounted for. We do not have any special presentations. I just grabbed the sign-up sheet for audience participation, and that is empty. We do not have anybody signed up for that. So that moves us in consent calendar. I know we do have an amendment to that consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Doty.
Consent calendar item number 17 to new business 1A.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion, Councilor Doty, second from Councilor Register, to move consent item number 17 to new business, be the first item that we hear, new business item number 1A this evening. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that passes. Do we have a motion for approval of the consent calendar as amended?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Stoddard for approval of the consent calendar as amended. Any discussion on that motion? Do we have that up for? If not, we can do a roll call. There we go. Okay. Okay. So it is open for voting. So there are no names, but so just so everybody knows, so seat 1 is Councilor Doty, seat 2 is Councilor Stoddard, seat number 3 there is Councilor Register, number 4 is Councilor Williams, number 5 is Councilor Allgood, and number 6 is Councilor Dittenberg, in case you're wondering what those numbers stand for. Even in my old age, I can still remember that. Okay, and that passes unanimously, 6 in favor. Okay, so that moves us into update report, and this will be from our Caldwell Executive Airport Annual Report. And I saw our wonderful Director of Aviation, Scott Swanson, is here for that. And I know that we had a couple commission members. If you don't mind raising your hand, just so we can acknowledge you. There, he's hiding in the back there, yes. Randy, and one of our newest ones up here up front too. So glad to have you here and appreciate your service on that board.
All right. I'll introduce myself, Scott Swanson, Director of Aviation, City of Caldwell. And as the mayor just pointed out, we do have Randy Neary in the back, who is the chairman of the airport board, and Justin Harrison, another member up front here. Yeah, I talked to Noah this morning.
Your time started when you introduced yourself.
Thank you, Councilor Williams. It went to the all email is where Noah told me to send it. Is it not there? Huh? The, like, the IT all email, whatever. Perfect. All right. So, okay, we're going to start, and I will just use my slide notes and then very basic information on what's going on at the airport this year. So just starting out, this is going to be the 2024 Caldwell City Council update. Myself already introduced Scott Swanson. We have discussion points, which are going to be the board meetings, the economic study that ITD performed in 2010, our based aircraft, current and ongoing developments and future developments, leases, and then I just labeled them as the last two topics would be threats and opportunities. And then how that would look is essentially a threat is something that would be invasive to us trying to grow forward, and then opportunities are things we need to take a hold of and utilize those as we move forward into the future. All right, for board meetings, as we all know, last year that the formerly known as the Airport Commission got reallocated into the Airport Advisory Board, and with that we stated meetings having essentially once a quarter. So we conducted our January 11th and April 11th meeting already. Our next meeting coming up is July 11th. We have conducted 2 meetings and 1 workshop this fiscal year. And primary discussion points on that have been root cause analysis on the happenings on the airport and where those things are stemming from. And then talking about revenues, wants versus needs of the airport users themselves, being the pilot's primary customer, and then also the needs of the city when it comes to the economic use of the airport as well, and then what strategy we focus on going forward and how we capture those goals. Published so far this year has only been 1 document that we did do a workshop on. That is a aviation mishap plan and checklist that has been published onto the website. And what that does is that's going to give the pilots the reference of, 1, who to contact, who they need to let know if something occurs on the airfield due to mechanical or pilot error, and reporting those to 911, any other emergency services, and also NTSB moving forward. And that also gives the city the handhold of saying, hey, we have this policy. These steps should be followed in the event of an aircraft mishap on the airfield. And then coming soon, we do need to work another workshop. And then also in June, the workshop will be on the rewrite of the leasing policy for the airfield and the ground leases that we hold as a city on the airport, and then also a rewrite to the rules and regulations of minimum standards, which we'll have a council workshop on 18 June to present those for almost an explanation and question and answer on that, and then that'll come forward to council at a later point for adoption and replacement of the current rules and regulations. Moving into the next topic is going to be the economic study. So I know from the last briefing I saw, I think it was in 2021 that Steve Kahn gave when he was chairman, the economic study that ITD Aeronautics reported on from 2020. So those studies are done every 10 years. So you can kind of take that as you want with that information. I look at that at pretty much after about 2 to 3 years, the information almost becomes stale, and you really got to dig out there to find what's going on. But from that study, we had 341 jobs, and in the impact area of the airport itself is defined as a 30-minute drive from Center Mass on Caldwell Executive Airport. So that pushes that radius all the way out to West Boise and all the way, west going over to Parma, and essentially that whole area just inside of Ontario. The GDP, or gross domestic product, or value added for the airport at that time was $25 million, and economic output is $56 million. And what that's saying is that between salaries and spending on the airfield at the end user level with the products, and then secondary spending with transfer those products elsewhere as well totals $56 million in this entire area. So when you take the populated area land sizes for the impact area, I came up with a list. So Caldwell encompasses 22.67 square miles. That is in the impact area. And then broken down, that comes down to about 11% of the impact area is Caldwell itself. And so that ends up being $2.7 million in value added or gross domestic product and $6.1 million in economic impact through double counting and extra spending going on within Caldwell itself. For based aircraft at this time, we currently have 538 aircraft based on Caldwell Executive Airport. And in 2020, they calculated there were 147,000 operations that occurred on Caldwell. Operation would be defined as either a takeoff or a landing. And with that, 110,000 of those operations were from based aircraft, and 37,000 operations were from transient aircraft passing through, stopping for gas, and whatnot on that. So with that, we have 478 single-engine aircraft, 26 multi-engine aircraft, we have 6 jet aircraft, and 27 helicopters based on Caldwell. For development at this time, we pretty much have 5 areas that are either spoken for, can be spoken for in the future, or currently being developed. With those, we have a project going on around the airport beacon or the well pump house on the south side of the airport near Gate 1, and that is to Envision Construction, and they are going to be building 5 hangars for that area, and they should be complete with those no later than the winter of this year. We also have Silverhawk Aviation that is going to be developing the farmhouse into the new FBO with a restaurant, and I expect probably a 24 to 30 month build process on that project, just with everything involved in costs.
I think we got your slides up finally.
Oh, sweet.
Yep.
Yeah, if we can go to slide 10, please. All right, so the northeast rectangle, which was originally awarded out in the year of 2022, encompassed 267,000 square feet of space, which added up to about $5 million worth of infrastructure that needed to be invested in that area before you could even put a hangar on it. The person that was awarded to, I have never been able to talk to since I've taken this position, and so that was revoked in December as far as taking that back, and we still need to work a plan for that moving forward. And then the Northwest Triangle is awarded a Sprint Bach in 23. I would expect to have something in ink no later than the middle of this summer, or else that will also be revoked and then go back out for RFP as needed. Slide. All right, so this is going to be this year's Airport Improvement Program, or AIP 2024 project. Project cost is $2.5 million. The cost to the city of Caldwell for this project is $189,000. And this is going to be an expansion of the apron on the north side of the airport in the vicinity of the Hubler Terminal, and then also an extension of Taxiway Charlie to the east and then south, connecting back to the runway right next to the big white 1,000-foot touchdown markers. All right, and that is all I have for development. Slide. All right, so we can look at leases. So right now we have 267 leases on the airport. Of these, only one of the leases is a non-aeronautical lease at the value of $13,000 a year. And then total revenues from hangar leases is $293,000. We do have shared electric on 66 buildings out there. Essentially how that works, so the city pays the electric cost and we recoup the cost back from the renter or the owner of that building. So that is just a pass-through cost, and that is $13,500. And they average $204 annually for their electric, with the gross hangar revenues of $306,000 coming in. And then if you look at the top chart up there, because we have 105 leases on council rate, and then we have CPI rate annuals of 114, and then 5 years and 7 years broken down. You can see the average cost per lease on the far right of that table as it comes across, with the leased amount being 11 cents per square foot on 4 leases being the average, and then 36 cents per square foot on council rates. That's going to be a mixture of street access and also inside the fence access, which is 2 different rates. All right, slide. All right, we have 5 agricultural leases on the airport totaling 76.97 acres, with a gross revenue of $18,621, or averaging $241 or $42 per irrigated acre. The chart on the lower portion of the slide there is from the USDA, and the most current date's 2022, but the national average for the area of Idaho, Oregon is $262 an acre for irrigated land. So we're, within $20 of that. Slide. So threats to the airport right now. The biggest one I see personally is going to be the agricultural lease income of $18,000. The airport's irrigation assessment fee is $48,500. So that is already across the board a net loss. The mayor and I have talked. I've talked with Ron McDonald with Public Works also. We do have a work going in to try to bring that irrigation out of where it is now and into the city and see what that's going to do to reduce costs across the board on that. And then with the leases themselves, we have the CPI rates and the council rates. So as a whole right now, the difference saying if we took everybody on the airport and we have all the leases except for 5 of them that do have a 180-day modification clause, and we made everybody on the airport a council rate, we would increase our revenue by $81,538 annually. So with that, though, being said, on those modifications, that is a 180-day notice, and then it can't take effect until the anniversary month of the lease that they are in. So there'd be a lot of working pieces that would go along with that. But there is a gap there of what's being supplemented to everybody that one is paying council or not paying council. And then I spoke earlier on a northeast rectangle and just the cost. So initial investment in that area just for water, sewer, and an access road to get to the area on the east side of the Hubler building to get some development in there would be about $650,000. And no developer in their right mind is just going to give the city money to start developing stuff, because they're never going to be able to have a way to make it back unless they just won the Powerball and don't care. But in total, the infrastructure costs of that area, with the road running from essentially the intersection of Smead and Linden across to KCID, interconnecting that, and then putting all the utilities in required, would be $1.9 million in today's prices. Now, that price also does not include the pavement that would be needed to facilitate taxi lane and taxiway development. That would be another $1.6 million. So you're looking at just over $3.5 million would be the total infrastructure need for that specific piece of property before it is even buildable to put hangars onto and start gaining costs off of that. All right, next slide. All right, we're going to end on a good note with opportunities. So based on the GDP and economic impact assessments from 2020 study, we can say that per based aircraft, the impact is $11,473, saying every aircraft we get onto the airport is going to generate that within the economy throughout the year. Or if you look at per leasee, because we have 267 leases, the impact will be $23,119. We do have the current lease revenues of $306,000 coming in, and then projected revenues based on development ongoing right now will be an additional $45,000 within the next 18 to 24 months, or $352,000 at that time. Slide. All right, and then questions, Mr. Mayor?
Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions from council members? Councilor Stoddard.
Mayor, I was just wondering, on your takeoff and landing number, does that include the helicopter school?
That does include the helicopter school.
Lights a little bit.
Absolutely. Yep.
Any other questions? No?
Mr. Mayor, no
Yes.
questions, but perhaps a couple
Yeah.
of comments. Without those inflated numbers, we'd get less benefit from the FAA on helping to pay for some of these things that we need. So we're glad for those numbers. But, there's a lot, I just appreciate that you've done, the fresh look, the new eyes, the new questions, the new approach, that is giving us new opportunities at the airport, and a lot of other things that are kind of in the mix and in the background. But thank you for the extra effort in finding ways that we can generate revenue out there at the airport, even looking at other lands that are potential for development and infrastructure and other things, and just having that perspective has moved us in ways we might not have envisioned a year ago. So thanks for the hard work.
Yes, Counselor.
Yeah, any other questions or comments? I would just replicate what Councilor Williams said. I appreciate everything you've done out there. It's been great, and I know that you and Rob are working really well together, so it's been phenomenal out there, so thank you for everything that you do. And thank you to our board members that are here. Appreciate your efforts and time that you give to it as well to make sure it all runs and functions properly, so thank you so much.
I
Thank
actually
you.
have
Oh,
a
yeah.
question.
Mhm.
Is it possible to hear from one of the board members?
Yeah, we could do that real quick if Randy wants to
Is
come
it
forward.
Randy?
Yeah.
Could you come, I have a question for you real quick. Sorry.
So what you give for
I-
showing up, Randy.
Well, because I remember before, when we first started, there was just, seemed like this mountain of problems, and you were very vocal about it, and I think that we all had some really good discussions, and then we kind of ended up here. So what I'm wondering from you is, because just as a check-in to where we were, do you feel like things are getting better from where they were when all that was happening? What's the general feel of the pilots out there?
Yes. Do I need to introduce myself, or are we good?
You're good. Maybe just
Okay.
state your name so we know.
Randy Neary.
Yep.
Yes, they are getting better. Scott has done a good job, as Councilman Williams has said. He's brought a lot of fresh numbers. I am actually, and I have conceded that I don't think my release rate is outrageous now. I do think it's outrageous, but I think it's justified, and that's all I would like it to be. So on that note, I can stand behind his numbers, and yes, okay, I see why it has to be what it has to be. He's brought a fresh look. He's got cleaned up some stuff that needed cleaned up as far as just some city exposure, if you will, with a safety plan. He's very accessible, approachable. He comes, obviously, with me being the chairperson, I either go to his office or he comes to my hangar at least monthly, so we have a lot of communication. He listens, doesn't always take what we say, but that's okay. We want an independent thinker, but he listens, and that's been some of the problem in the past, that nobody really hears us. You know, if you remember, one of my complaints was, we pay a lot in property taxes. I don't care where that money goes. I just want it accounted for, and he has shown where that money goes. He has shown that it's accounted for in the city budget, and that we do bring. I'm going to single you out a little bit, Councilman Doty. We are not a hobbyist airport that's being subsidized. I know you retracted that, and I want that on the record, but that was said once, and he has proven that we are not that. So I think we're moving in a very positive direction, very, very positive. I stand behind his numbers and what he does. He really engages with us as a board that our numbers, or his numbers, are accurate, and that we back him up. So I hope that answered
Yeah,
kind of
it does.
roundabout. But yeah.
I like to hear from the people who are directly involved in those things, because, I mean, we can get presentations with numbers and it all sounds great and everything, but if we have people that are unhappy, that's where we had the problem, because you can see that when the communication opens up and you still don't like your rate, it feels different, you know, because you're having those conversations. So I just wanted to make sure.
I will say also, as the board meetings are continuing, there's a lot less distension, just anger that's not showing up. It's not a bitch session anymore, and that's nice. We're getting done. They're longer. I think our last one was maybe 3 hours long. So he went quarterly, and we all had some negativity towards that, but it is working. And then we're doing workshops that are one item topics, and we're literally spending 2 or 3 hours there. It's not so, you know, constrained and everything. So no, I think it's moving in a very positive direction. And like I said, I stand behind now. I mean, I'm still not happy with what I have to pay. I've accepted it, and I see the numbers, and I accept it even more, if that makes sense. That, okay, yeah, I see it. You know, and he even talked, I said, yeah, I could even see it going to 50 cents. I get it. I don't want to, but I understand the numbers. As a business owner, I get it, you know, and the city has to run like that, you know, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr.
Councilor
Mayor.
Stoddard?
Mr. Deering, maybe you can answer the question, but how do we stand on the control tower? Is that in the near future, or does Mr. Swanson
Yeah,
have?
we did just talk about it, but he'll
Okay.
know a little more of the verbs.
Okay.
All right, am I done?
Yes, thank you so much.
I'll be sure to use the verbs. The control tower, Councilor Sodic, so we completed a sighting and safety survey in March. So I will have the official documentation back to the city no later than 12 December is what they've told me right now. But in conjunction with Job Engineering and Tobley Epler, we are moving forward with an economic study of the area that the tower is going to go. And then right now it's going to be interesting moving forward just due to costs. On that, the city can expect probably a 10% share on that, depending on how much the state's gonna have at that time. But I would propose that probably fiscal year 27 would be when the tower would be built. I'm gonna try everything in my power to get the documentation back earlier than scheduled and get an application in for that grant for FY 25. We're just gonna see where that falls and how the FAA looks at this right now and their contract tower program and how that's been going. So the city of Caldwell would receive the first actual fully built brand new tower under that program in the nation, because they have not built one yet. And so it's going to be interesting how it plays out with the feds, on the federal side, and justifying the money being allocated to this area and what they're going to have to show for it at the end of fiscal year 27. And also in fiscal year 26, they're going to do what's called a airport infrastructure grant sweep, where they're going to pool together all the money that had not been spent over the previous 5 years, and the first $100 million of that is going to be allocated directly toward tower development. And Caldwell's airport name has come up multiple times in those conversations at the federal level.
Good, so the touch and goes from the helicopter people will help justify that, is that correct?
I'd say maybe to a point, yes, but overall, if you look at just based aircraft numbers, and without a tower, we're number one in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone else, if you look at comparative airports like Van Nuys in California, you know, they have 600 and something aircraft based there. They also have a tower, but the biggest thing comes in when you talk about like state GDPs and how they're able to support local economies within the state from funding. You know, California has a GDP of $4 trillion. You know, and Idaho is at 117 billion. So there's a huge difference there. And just population-wise also. So as more people move into the area, you increase tax bases and things of that nature, more money will come, but it's almost kind of like the field of dreams where, you know, you build it and they will come.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be a waiting game and patience at this point, and just ensuring we have all our ducks in a row moving forward and we're ready to submit paperwork when we need to submit paperwork to get money.
Do they have a projected number on the cost of that, just the brick and mortar, or do you?
Yeah, so brick and mortar right now for a control tower, because what they have told me is if we used a contract tower, it'd be 116 feet tall. And they're about $160,000 per vertical foot to build. So you're looking somewhere, I'd say my guess is somewhere between 17 and $19 million for that tower. Whereas the city's investment would be no more than 10% of that, but then you're getting a $17 to $18 million product for that 10% investment.
Good. And I just want to send you kudos too from what Councilor Williams said. I think, based on your reports, since you've been with us, it's 100% improvement.
Thank you,
Appreciate that.
Councilor.
Yeah. Any other questions or? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we do not have any old business, so that's gonna put us into the new business, the new item 1A. And this was removed from the consent calendar. This is for the resolution for the approval of the modification to resolution 369-23 regarding the free parking privileges extending to vehicles with veteran plates. And I know that, actually Director Swanson had wanted to speak on this as well, so we do, this is, not a quasi judicial, so there's not a sign-up sheet. We want to make sure that we do provide some time for, Mr. Swanson caught me in between, asked to make sure they had a chance to speak on it. So, I'll just kind of give a brief rundown on it, and then we can go either into council discussion, or if you want to hear from Mr. Swanson at that time. So there's been discussion on, providing for free parking in the downtown for veterans. And that's gone from, how does that get implemented and in what way and what form? So this is basically just, before council, whether it's a decision tonight or continued on which direction you want to go. So the proposal is in regards to the plates that are on the vehicles. We just determined that was the easiest way to do it, rather than ticketing parking individuals and then having them come back to show if they're veterans or not, and wiping those out would have created the need for additional staff people just to man that. And so the decision was just to go off of the plate indications. And so what's before you after research through other cities and how they do it and what they do, what's worked for them is obviously any and all disability plates would be free. That's regardless whether they're veterans or not, to be honest. And then also if it's Purple Heart, Medal of Honor, Gold Star, Silver Star, and the POW tags on those plates would allow for that free parking in the downtown Caldwell. I know there's been some discussion of expanding that even more into the plates for, I believe, for all branches of the service that have those individual ones. So this was presented to council for your consideration to start at this level, and then if felt that it needed to go beyond that in the future, can do so. It's obviously easier to add to a list rather than taking away on that, so that is the reason for this proposal on that. And if it appears to have been different than what was going to be proposed, do apologize for that. That was not the intent as we looked at it. This is what was felt for the appropriate place to start and begin in that regards, then can always be amended or changed in the future. So that is what that was, or what that is. And again, this was removed from the consent calendar, and so this is again open for discussion. We do want to make sure we provide some time for Mr. Swanson, who indicated he did want to speak on this matter.
Well,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I'll start, because I've been just infuriated by this since yesterday. So I want to clear up what happened exactly, and it's not going to be very political or very polite, probably. But when I came to you with this proposal, initially, I had emailed you and asked and told you that I wanted to bring it up in council comments, to which you agreed was the appropriate way to do that. And somewhere in there, you had consulted with the car park and with Steve Jenkins about the best way to do this, and they came back with some sort of ideas. And then I emailed you back with what I thought we were talking about, which was all veteran plates. You agreed to that in the email. Fast forward to the council meeting that we had where I did propose it. There's a video where I propose it for all veterans, not anything exclusive to a disability plate that was already included or any of these specialized plates. And the reason why it worked was because the DMV already vets these plates with their DD-214. There's not one of them that isn't a veteran who gets the plate. So it's not like we're extending it to anybody who's not a veteran, whereas the list that you've come up with is basically just for medal winners, and that's unfair. But the problem that I have with this mostly is that you said that you had consulted with Car Park, and Car Park doesn't make a decision for the city. So I'm an elected official. So when I bring you a proposal, then at that point, I guess you can change it if you want to, but it would seem to be respectful to put forward what an elected official brings you to a vote without going to a private company to ask them what their opinion is, and then putting on the agenda what a private company wants as opposed to the people who were either elected to serve this community or what the community themselves are asking for. And this is not the first time this has happened with me, so there's a respect issue there. But it would have been less infuriating had you come to me and said that we're going to make these changes, this is what's going to be presented. Instead, it was just put on the agenda, it was kind of snuck in there. Not to mention that under the actual resolution, it says that even these plates are only afforded street parking and not lot parking. So the whole thing has been changed completely, which has been extremely frustrating. But I do not think, nor do I support the car park making a decision for us at all, in any way. So the you said that I misunderstood the email. I did not misunderstand anything. If you go back and you read the email or you watch the video, it was not me who had the misunderstanding. It was changed on purpose and then hidden, as far as I can tell. I don't know what the problem is with supporting all the veterans. I'm disappointed that something that was so easy to give back to our community and to show our support for our veterans has turned into some kind of weird political thing, or maybe it's about money, but this is about thanking people for their sacrifice, not because they won an award, not because they're disabled, but because they either went when they were called or they volunteered to serve our country, and this is a way that we can thank them. And to say to them, we're only going to thank you if you have a certain kind of plate because you got hurt, or we're only going to let you park on the street and not in the lot, and then we're going to hide it and put it on the agenda that we did, is politics at its worst. And we should be thankful to them as a human being, period. So the motion is to grant all veterans who have a veteran license plate that's already been vetted by the DMV to park free downtown, on the streets, in the lots, anywhere that they want. That's my motion. So now we're clear. There shouldn't be any question about that.
I appreciate that. And so, just to kind of comment on those, there was no political misguidings or dealings trying to hide this in any shape, way, or form. A private company does not make the decision, the council does, and that's what the 6 of you will do tonight on that. This is simply a recommendation in consultation with the experts that do this and what they've seen in our research in that regard. So, I know in the email that I sent to you on May 2nd, that was forwarded, that I forwarded from the car park, that talked about, and it says, you know, that in their research, the second most common approach was free parking for veteran specialty tags such as Purple Heart recipients. And in that email, I said that this is what we are recommending, and going in that direction. So there may have been some confusion after that. And again, I haven't looked at the video that you stated on that.
Then read the email that I sent back to you. Nobody asked the car park except for you. It was there. We came forward with this because citizens came to us and said this would be a really nice thing to do. We came forward. Nobody needs the consultation from the car park. Nobody cares what they think as far as this is concerned. I don't.
Yeah, and that's your prerogative. So,
right.
I mean,
so read the email back that I sent you, which was clarifying what we were doing, and then you agreed to that, which was not what you're reading there.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna back her up on this too.
Mhm.
I think communication, I think the majority of the council has talked to you about your communication with the council. It came from Councilor Register, and I agree with her. Before you went to Car Park and decided it was gonna be something different than what was proposed and the council agreed on, just having open communication with Councilor Register might have helped resolve some of this issue. But here we sit. I agree with her. It is not what was agreed upon by what she said and what this council shook their head to. And I also agree, why are we going out and asking a private business how things should run at the city? However, had you communicated with Councilor Register as to why maybe that angle, you wanted to take that angle and get her input, that might have helped resolve some of the issues here today.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And like I said, the goal always is to have that communication, and I felt that we did. So obviously, there's disagreement on that. It will be, I guess, in different regards
It isn't a
to that.
disagreement,
So,
Mr. Mayor. You didn't even contact her before you contacted Car Park. So I don't think anyone's disagreeing that you didn't contact her.
mhm.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to comment too, I agree with what these two counselors said, because I just wanted to double check myself. I went back, looked at the video too, because as a liaison to the veteran, and having been a veteran myself, that's what I conveyed to the board, that all veterans with license plates, they would have free parking, and that's what they understand too. And when I saw this, that there was, I believe there's 9 veteran plates that are out there that are issued by the state of Idaho. And when I read the stipulations as to, there's just gonna be a few of them that greatly bothered me too, so just so you know.
Yeah. No. Okay. Any other discussion, or I don't know if Mr. Swanson wants to speak at all, or?
I'll just make a comment on
Mhm.
Mr. Swanson speaking. Obviously,
Yeah.
we respect him and he's
Mhm.
doing great at the airport. But again, my frustration would be, you're gonna allow Mr. Swanson to speak. You didn't announce to the public that everyone would get to speak.
Mhm.
And so why would we listen to Mr. Swanson without, maybe there was someone else that wanted to come in and speak, but it wasn't open now, and now we're gonna allow Mr. Swan, so I'll be happy to hear from him, because I appreciate anyone that shows up and wants to speak to council. But if we're gonna have public testimony on it, we certainly should have allowed and announced to the public, we're gonna allow testimony on this, not pick and choose who we're gonna allow to testify. But he's here, and I'll hear what he has to say, but I think that's a good point, that we don't get to just pick and choose. If we're gonna hear public testimony about something on the agenda, it should be open to everyone, not just, someone that happens to be sitting in the crowd that wants to come up and speak.
Yeah, appreciate that, and I would leave it up to Mr. Swanson. It's like I said, he had approached me in between the workshop and this to ask if he could say some words, and so that's why I told him that we could allow him to do so. So if he wishes to not, that's totally fine, in that regards, or if he does, either way. So then we could open it up to if there's anybody else that wanted to address it as well.
All right. Scott Swanson, again? Okay. So I definitely, have worked very closely with Steve Jenkins and Ophelia Morales within economic development, kind of the whole progress of the car park moving through, bringing the meters and all that stuff in the city of Caldwell. And I can understand reservations on everybody's sides for the pros and the cons, whereas at the end of the day, and these are gonna be my opinions, nobody else's. I look at parking meters as a form to generate revenue, to facilitate costs of things that need to happen for the city. And whether that is, bringing things in, getting a pool fixed, or just bringing more opportunities of things to do within the city, there has to be a revenue base that supports that. We have property taxes and things of that nature. Anything outside the box that we can bring in that also helps support that should always be a good thing. And then if you kind of look at the areas, and then I did a deep dive on this as well, I found one city in the state of Massachusetts that allows free parking for all veterans. And I completely get wanting to support veterans. I served 20 years in the military. I retired. Probably I would say 90% of the friends I still associate with are all still serving or veterans themselves. But if you look around kind of a little bit of the local area and a little down south, places like, we all know Rapid City, Billings, Montana, Casper, Wyoming, Cheyenne, Clarksville, Tennessee, Tulsa, Oklahoma, everywhere has paid parking downtown. Of course, I see a lot of talk out here like, oh, we don't want to become Boise. I don't think it should be looked at that way. It should be looked at, hey, how do we generate revenue that is relatively inexpensive to bring further additions into the city of Caldwell to benefit the citizens of Caldwell? Because people do not have to park in the metered areas. Is it convenient? Absolutely. It's very close to everything. It's very nice. But there's nothing saying we can't park a little bit further down the way and walk into downtown as well. However, that is everybody's own prerogative, and also what they've been used to doing for years out here is that. And the last thing I kind of want to end with, just on the veteran speak, and looking at it from my perspective and how I view it, and what some people may call handouts or expectations or things of that nature. But it's critical to acknowledge that military service in general is a sacrifice, but it doesn't warrant special treatment or free services. That I don't agree with. The entitlement mentality as a whole, and this is my opinion again, creates a culture of dependency upon whoever, where veterans may anticipate receiving handouts instead of taking responsibility for their own personal growth. And anybody can agree or disagree. Like, we have open conversations. That's a great thing. That's just my thought on the matter. I just don't want to create an environment of expectation based on certain class and privileges. It's almost like one of those things that's all or none, whereas in the concept of the Medal of Honor, Silver Star, which are both Valor Awards, and then you have the Purple Heart, which is Wounded in Combat, a Gold Star Family Members, which is your immediate family member of a service member who's died overseas, and then POW is, we all know, Prisoner of War, which is probably one of the worst situations you could be in life. I feel like those across the board are probably majority of the average across the U.S. for free parking anywhere, and then disabled plates in general, you're always going to have free parking in the state of Idaho. And that's all I have to say on that. I will stand for questions if you have.
I'm gonna
Okay.
address it.
Yeah.
So this didn't come from a veteran that asked us to do this. These were community members who wanted to give back. And I think that, being, you know, I have two kids who are in the service, and, they volunteered for it, and yes, it's a sacrifice and all the things, but at the same time, like, I just truly believe that if you want to live in a country where you have the freedoms that we do, that we're very lucky that we have the military that we do, and I'm okay with honoring them and not just focusing on one group or whatever else, but it's not about entitlement. So it's frustrating to hear that you think that this is an entitlement thing when that's not what it is. It's this city being able to honor the people who live here and come here and spend money here and spend time here, and give back to them in some tiny, tiny way in what they've done for us. So if you want the numbers, like 2 or 10 veterans can come here every day and spend 2 hours and have lunch every day for that month, and it's gonna cost $600 to the city for not charging them. I'm okay with that. I don't need a rebuttal. I'm frustrated that this has turned into this, when it's really meant to be a completely different thing. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
The only comment, Scott, I would have is, if you go on a premises of free handouts or something free, then we should close the Caldwell Veterans Memorial Hall down, because we give a lot of free advice out there.
Yeah.
Last 2 months, we've prevented 4 suicides based on the training that some of those boys had there at the hall. It was free, didn't charge anything, so I really object to, the handout thing. I agree with Councilor Register that if cities can do something for their veterans, they ought to do it, and this is something so minute that, it'd be a shame if it wasn't approved, so.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Councilor Stoddard, on that comment was not the context I was going for on the verbiage of entitlement. However, I said everybody can take it one way. There are services that veterans do need from their experiences from time in service. There's no denying any of that. That stuff is free is absolutely outstanding, and a lot of service members do need those things for certain. Absolutely, I agree. I've been there. I've needed those as well.
And the other option is for people like you who don't want this. If I think you're a veteran, right?
Yes.
If you have the correct plates, then you can still pay for your parking.
I
There's
did.
nothing that says, right, but there's nothing that says that if you
no.
feel so impassioned about not taking a quote free handout or being entitled, then just pay for your parking.
No, I did at dinner this evening.
Great, thank you.
Yes, but it's not in the services that are offered by VSOs, veteran halls, the VA, because all those things already exist. It's just a more of, we should get this because we served, which I get to a
It
point.
wasn't like that. It was not presented by a veteran. Nobody came forward and said we should have this because of this. This is what I'm saying, because it's come up that it would be a nice thing to do. And like I said, this was supposed to be easy. It was supposed to be something that we could do. It's not going to cost us, I don't think it's going to cost us anything to be able to do it, and people like you can still pay your parking bills. It's that simple.
Yes.
So I don't know why you're up here, like, advocating not to give it to people who we feel like deserve it.
Yeah, I think there was a miscommunication from my perspective on where this was coming from and how it was going out.
Yeah. I think so.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
I mean, 98% of problems are due to poor communication.
And that's exactly what's happened, I'm sure,
So,
so
yes.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you want to say a few words? Yeah, if you don't mind, could you come to the microphone, just state your name?
Yeah, Justin Harrison, on the Airport Advisory Board, just coincidentally here. My mother served in Vietnam, and she couldn't afford to put a plate on her car at all. And she's still driving. So to think that just because we got a plate, we can go park somewhere, she doesn't get that advantage. She's on Social Security and barely gets by.
we did talk about a registration system for veterans, however, we did agree that that would be burdensome at this
No,
point.
I understand,
this
but
was
there
the
are
place to
people
start.
out there that
Mhm.
don't have the well-being to go spend that extra $120 a year to have a personalized plate. I mean, I have one on my truck. I work hard and I make money, but my mother is on a fixed income. There's no way in hell that she could get a personalized plate on her car. So I just want you guys to realize there's other stuff out there, and she probably wouldn't notice it even if it mattered, because she's a dingbat right now, but it's just, there's other opportunities that are lost on people that served, and, you know, she's PTSD and had terrible situations when she was in the military, and she's been suffering her entire life. But she doesn't get that advantage.
Thank you, appreciate it. I think, yeah, one other. Yeah, if you don't mind, just state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name's Tom Munz. I just had a couple comments since you guys brought it up. I am new to the parking issue. I'm going to be visiting with all of the local business people to find out a little bit more about how they feel, and maybe I can report back and stuff like that if it's necessary. I wanted to be able to echo off of what he was saying about this, and I know it's a very temperamental, it's a very emotional topic when you talk about the military. You talk about the military, all of a sudden you're anti-American. There are other ways to look at this. One way is basics. When it seems like America, the city councils, the states and everything, they've lost their sense of foundation. The foundation of law, the flag that we pledge allegiance to the republic. And what the first thing that I would say, and without any disrespect to council member Register, is that when laws are created, there's a difference between lawfulness and legalness. Lawful is something that is legitimately lawful, and you have the ability to do that. Legalness is to be able to do whatever policy that the city council wants to do. So I always go back to the basics. And the first basic thing I found out is this. If a law or a policy is created, it should affect all people equally. Whenever you start getting to the point where you start giving special treatment to special people, you've just treaded in the effort to be able to support one person or a certain class of people, you've just denigrated the rest of the class of people. Classic example. You know, you can shake your head. It's a matter of.
We have a legal team.
I think this is my time.
Okay.
I think this is my time.
Well, then don't address me. If you don't want me to address you back, don't
I used you as a
address me.
reference, ma'am.
Okay? Don't come at me and say, don't shake your head, if you don't want me to respond.
We'll let him finish, and then.
Somebody's fired up. Okay, so in other words, what I'm saying is there's, like I said, I understand all of that. The first thing I wanted to talk about is the lawfulness. The other thing I want to talk about is the states and the cities and the counties, everybody's looking for money. There's the school districts, class example. There ain't enough money in the world to be able to satisfy everybody. So what do? The city councils, the commissioners, the states, they all try to find a way to be able to increase revenue. And you know what they use? The taxpayer. This is a form of double taxation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with these principles, but double taxation is unlawful. You can tax somebody for a sidewalk, you can tax somebody for the street, you can tax somebody for everything else you want. Now you're going to create a tax because you're going to pay a private organization to be able to do this plan. And then what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up whacking the taxpayer for the expense of what that is.
It's not a tax. A tax is something you're obligated to pay. This is a parking fee.
Okay, so then we'll move on.
I'm speaking right now. So you can move to a spot that you do not have to pay. So therefore, it is not a tax. You can choose to park at the meter or not park at the meter. And that's councilor register. It's not somebody is fired up. It's councilor register.
I said council member register, okay? And the other thing to consider that most people are not aware of is I've spent the last 15 years studying comprehensive plans and sustainable development.
I'm aware.
When you start looking at this, Mr. Councilman Member Doty, you're going to find out that you guys are implementing sustainable development. And sustainable development, you can you can Google sustainable development and parking meters, and you're going to find out that parking meters is moved toward as part of the comprehensive plan to be able to move towards sustainable development.
Give you one more minute to wrap it up, and then we'll.
Okay, and sustainable development, for anybody that wants to even consider what I'm saying, it comes from the original source documentation from the United Nations in 1992 at the Rio de Janeiro summit. So if anybody wants to, it's a hard time for people to be able to believe what I'm talking about, but I would like to compare anybody else's evidence to the evidence that I have. So we need to be really careful about how we're treating our citizens, because if we're gonna be moving toward walkable cities, which is something that we're gonna end up creating inadvertently when people don't wanna park here, you're attacking the taxpayer, the very entity in the basin. You're attacking the local businesses because now they have to park 5 blocks away. What about the women that work late at night? Anyway, just a couple of thoughts for you guys. I didn't mean any disrespect, by the way. I know it's a passionate topic, but sometimes it just happens. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address this item? Okay, I don't see anybody. So we do have a motion, from Councilor Register, and that was for the approval of the resolution adding in, all of the, veteran license plates. So that would be including, if I'm not mistaken, for the branches of service, each different branch that you do have to get through the DMV. So basically, any license plate that's done through the DMV where you have to show and prove that you are in fact a veteran.
For
Is
the
that
street
correct?
and the lots, yes.
Okay. So would you have a motion for that? And I think Councilor Doty, did you second that, or?
Will.
Okay, I remember you had something about in favor. I couldn't remember if you motioned for a second. Okay, so that is a motion from Councilor Register, a second from Councilor Doty. In that regards, any questions on what the motion is?
No, I don't have
Okay.
a question, I just had a statement when
Yeah,
you get to that
yeah.
point.
I
Did you have a
have a
question?
question. Would this be, do you intend for this to be all-day parking if somebody wants to? I just want to be clear. Is it 2-hour parking, 4-hour parking, or if veterans want to park all day?
Well, I don't think they can, like, abandon their car there, so they would still have to follow the same, whatever the rules are of parking on the street, which I think is 72 hours or something like that. Like, they can't, you know what I mean? But other than that, yeah.
Some of the, I'm thinking of, people that work at the post office that are veterans that'll park there all day long, and that's okay.
So, yeah, discussion. Councilor Allgood.
And Counselor Williams hit on kind of where I was going, is that there's been some discussion about this is a revenue raising thing, and from my perspective, that's not the purpose for parking meters. The purpose for parking meters is to keep circulation downtown so businesses can have new people park in front of the business. So I certainly am not against having the first 2 hours, first 3 hours or something for a veteran being free, but I would struggle with, because we're doing exactly opposite what the intention of a parking meter was, which is to keep business moving downtown. So I don't know whether it would, I wouldn't vote for it like it is. If you can park all day downtown without any fee, that's going against the reason we put the parking meters in. So, without an amendment, I would be a no.
Yeah, and that may be a question for our attorney, because I know, like, for disability parking, it is all day. You cannot require them to move it after 2 hours or 3 hours, if I remember right, in Idaho code. So I don't know if there's a way to make this different, or if we would need to follow the same rules and procedures as with disability parking, ADA parking.
No, I think the disability parking is gonna fall under that same rule.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent that it goes beyond a disability, I think you have the authority to set the rules.
The question I have about that, if you make it a certain amount of hours, how is the car park gonna know when they parked there? I think I understand what you're saying, but I almost feel like we're assuming that the whole downtown is gonna be flooded with veterans all day, you know what I mean, all day, every day, and I don't see that happening. So I'd prefer to keep the motion the way that it is to make it easy, but.
Yeah, and I think that was my question too, is
Mhm.
how difficult would that be for the car park to do that? Because basically now you're having to monitor how long has this car been here with this plate, and could it's basically getting to that first issue where having the people come in and show that they're a veteran after they receive a ticket, where it could create so much additional work. It makes sense to go one way or the other on that, but that's obviously the purview of the council. Councilor Stoddard?
Mr. Mayor, I think there should be an amendment too regarding that situation. The thing I want to mention too, when the gentleman talked about double taxation, the last number that I saw, and I'm on the Veterans Board representing the city, the veterans in this county brought in $85 million last year of services. So they do contribute something to this organization and our county itself, because had it not been for the Veterans Board and the building here, that money would have been someplace else. So they do bring something back to the general public, so.
Yeah. Councilor Dittenberg, did you have a comment, or I saw you starting to pull, or no?
I did. I was waiting for the dust to settle a little bit. First of all, I think that, that giving veterans all-day parking, free parking all day long is probably something I'm not in favor of. I am in favor of giving veterans a couple free hours of parking. I'm a veteran myself, could track my lineage of veterans all the way back to the Civil War. So no disrespect against the veterans, but I do think we need to, Car Park is a smart organization. We live in the digital age where we know everything, and when gunshots are fired, we'll know how long a veteran has parked. And so I think 2 hours of veterans parking is
Maybe what
adequate.
we need to do then, if there's gonna be an insistent on, an amendment, is the hours of parking are from what time in the morning again?
I think 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., if I remember correct.
Are they 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or?
I think it's 7 p.m. at night.
Do you know, Mr. Hilty? Oh, here we
I'm
go.
surprised we don't.
9 a.m.? 9 a.m. to 7 p.m.
9 a.m. to 7 p.m., right? So maybe then what we could say is that there's free parking between, like, you know, maybe the lunch hours and then towards the end of the day, or the breakfast hours, like, you know, 9 to 2, and then, you know what I mean, or something like that, so it's easier to keep track of that. Otherwise, because I would hate to say, well, you only get 2 hours free, and then somebody is trying to keep track of when they parked there, and then it gets confusing and messy and ugly.
Yeah. So,
Mr. Mayor, I
There's
think
no
that,
city marking tires.
I think if we put a 2-hour limit, I think that would be acceptable, and that would be any time during the day. I mean, I think car park can, you know, they can keep track of that. If a guy comes in veteran comes in at 10 and leaves at 12, he's not gonna get charged, or if he comes in at 1, leaves at 3, he's not gonna get charged, so I think that's doable.
If they can keep track of it.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Mayor, you still have to, you're supposed to still enter your plate even when you're not being charged, like the 3-hour zone. So if they enter their plate, that should give Car Park the timestamp of when the plate was entered.
okay.
Well, I still think it should be all day, but if the rest of you, I mean, if it's gonna be a push, then, yeah.
And it's up to you.
Then I would go with,
So it was your motion, so if you want to amend it, you can, or if you want to go forward with what it was.
I'm not gonna
and-
waste time if everybody's gonna vote against
Yeah.
it, like,
Mhm.
come on, I'm not,
Mr.
but
Mayor,
go ahead. What were you
Mr.
gonna
Mayor, I think the 2-hour limit would be palatable, and I'll talk to the board about it, but I'm sure they would accept that.
Then,
And that's any time during the day.
could we at least then do 3 hours, so that for the older veterans, when they park, they walk, they get somewhere, they visit, they walk back, it's enough time.
I have no problem with that.
So is that amended then to
I
allow for
suppose.
3 hours?
Begrudgingly,
And the seconder, are you good with that
We
amendment?
going with 2 or 3?
3.
Okay. So amended motion, as stated before, but with a 3-hour, maximum allowance for the free parking for veterans, any veteran plate that's been designated through the DMV, with that verification process.
In
So
lots
the-
and streets.
On lots and streets.
And I just want a point of clarification, Mr. Mayor. That does require the veteran to put their license plates in for the purpose of tracking the time.
Absolutely.
So that motion is from, Counselor Register, the second from Counselor Doty. Any further discussion on that motion? Okay, do we need to do a roll call, or we just do a voice vote?
I hate to throw this in here at this point. The resolution that's in the packet, I think, has got some typographical errors that are unrelated to this discussion. So my recommendation is that we bring back another resolution.
Okay, with the updates as discussed.
I think it's pretty clear, you know, where we're headed. It's basically any vet plate, 3 hours, they have to enter their number, when they get in there, and then they would be subject to, payments, I guess, after that 3 hours elapses. Maybe the thing to do is to prepare that resolution fairly early, get it distributed, make sure that if there's any further clarifications, we can get that done before the next council meeting. But we really don't have a written resolution that looks like this. So the motion and passing it would be fine. We know where everybody is. We can can come back and access the record if we needed to when drafting that resolution.
Good. So do you recommend we go ahead and take a vote tonight?
Yeah, I think
or-
you would take a
Okay.
vote and find out if everybody's on the same page, or at least a majority.
Okay, and then we'll just distribute that resolution to all council to be able to review it, make sure it matches what was voted on tonight.
And we'll bring it back for passage on the next agenda.
Okay, sounds good. So, any questions on that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
if we could have something, a draft, Mr. Hilty, I've got another meeting June sixth with the board. You think you could have it by that time?
Yeah, because.
That would help.
So, okay, any other questions? Okay, and then, so we actually do, look at that, and your names are up there, so I'll read them off. Okay, so you've heard the motion and the second and the discussion, so the voting is open at this
No,
time?
Mr. Mayor,
Oh.
this wouldn't pertain to what all the changes we just made, right?
So there would be the motion would be modified from what you see there. So the vote is for the motion that was made, by Councilor Register, the amended motion, that was made by Councilor Register and then seconded by yourself.
Verbiage up above is not the amended motion.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
think that really matters.
Matter?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we could just do a roll call vote too, to make that just simpler. So we'll just do that. So, Madam Clerk, do you mind doing a roll call vote on that one?
Register,
Yes.
Dittenberg,
Yes.
Allgood,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Doty,
Yes.
Sadek.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion passes unanimously, and then like I said, we'll have that resolution back for finalization the June 4th city council meeting. I believe that's the date for the next time we meet. Okay, that moves us into new business action item number 1. So this is case number ANN 23-21, PUD 23-8, and sub 24-1. And who is the planter? Alex. Okay, time is yours.
Got it for you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Alex Jones, planner at 205 South 6th Avenue. Presented before you today is Greenmont South Annexation and PUD with a preliminary plat. Technical difficulty, sorry. There we go. Okay, so for subject site location, the location of this proposed development is approximately 1,300 feet south of the Ustick and Indiana roundabout. For the applicant's request, the applicant is requesting annexation of 80.4 acres with a zoning designation of R2 medium density residential and a planned unit development with a preliminary plat for the Greenmont South subdivision. For the development project analysis, the applicant is proposing a development consisting of 80.4 acres of single-family homes and alley-loaded homes of varying sizes. Greenmont South consists of 343 single-family lots and 54 common lots with a total density of 4.27 units per acre. For the PUD deviations, they are the applicant is requesting reduced minimum lot sizes, lot frontage, and setbacks as shown on this table. I will leave this on the screen for a little bit. All right. For the conditions surrounding the subject site is surrounded by residential along with recently approved residential developments to the north, east, south, and west. And I can go into those approved developments. To the east, you have the Hoshaw development. To the north is the first Greenmont development. And to the west is, I have that on another slide. 1 second, please. On the west is Ferncroft, and the south is Southern Heights. And I will leave this on the screen so you can see the approved developments. All right. For zoning and land use analysis, the applicant is proposing annex to the R2 medium density residential zoning. This allows for up to 4 units per acre, but along with the PUD, they are able to go up to 12 units per acre, and they are currently asking for 4.27 units per acre. The surrounding zones to the east, south, and west are R1 low density residential, and to the north, the zoning designation is R2 and C2, along with 1 county parcel. Staff would like to take the time to comment on the development surrounded the development being surrounded by R1, low density residential, as the Planning and Zoning Commission had questions how this development would fit in with the surrounding, existing homes. Staff took time to review the preliminary plats of the subdivisions to the west, east, and south, and found that Ferncroft average lot size is around 7,000 square foot, Hoshaw is around 6,400 square foot, Heritage Meadows around 7,300, and Southern Heights around 6,000. In today's R1 zoning code, none of these developments would classify for a R1 subdivision outright. The minimum lot size for an R1 subdivision today is 8,000 square feet. So these surrounding subdivisions would better fit in a R2 zoning category. So this development will actually fit in pretty well with the existing residential development. For a comprehensive plan analysis, the comp plan designation for this development is medium density residential. The comp plan designation to the east and south are low density residential. To the west is medium and low density residential, along with public to the southwest. And to the north is medium density residential and business. For public hearing notifications, we received comments from Valley View, ITD, and Nampa Highway District. All shared no concerns with the development. We did receive a public notification from Steve Schmind, who is a neighbor. They said they are in opposition due to increased traffic density and the effect that they will have on their view of the mountains. On April 10th, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this development, and staff recommends that the City Council approves the request that is subject to the conditions in the FCOs. I stand for questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions from council? Councilor Stoddard?
Mr. Mayor, so this particular development is within the Valley View School District or Caldwell School District?
I believe Valley View.
Valley View. And
the cutoff, I believe, is right at Ustick Road.
And I'm just surprised they didn't have any comments with the overcrowding problem that they have now.
They did say which schools they would go to, but in their letter, which, just so you know, this staff report's on page 256 of your packet, and Valley View School District's letter should be in there. I believe, from my memory, it is, they talked about which schools they were going to be at, and that I don't believe they shared anything about overcrowding.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Okay, Councilor Williams?
Mr. Mayor, there's a lot about it I like, but we're down to 4,000 square foot per lot now. Maybe this is a rhetorical question, but what is the limit? How far down do we intend to go? And I'm looking over at Morgan too, because it's unfair to put you necessarily on the spot here, Alex, but as much as there are elements of this development, as I looked through it, that I'm excited about and I like, a 4,000 square foot lot is getting pretty small. Now, this is a generation that isn't like mine, that's old, and we used to complain about houses being built side by side by side. Now this generation expects it, but where's our limit? How much further down will we go? 4,000 seems to be really pushing that. Is this a reasonable request in staff's estimation, or are we being asked to do something that is really pushing the limits here?
So, thank you, Councilor Williams. So with that, this is a PUD, so they are asking for this. This generally would not be normal. That is, 4,000 is around R3 standards. R3 is 5,000 minimum. But with that, with the PUD, it's give and take. They ask for this waiver. Council sees if, that is appropriate, and they give a lot more. Well, they always hope that they give more. So it's one of those, you will have smaller lot sizes for these, but say they have exponential common area. For this one, I didn't go in the presentation, so thank you for reminding me. They're required to have 10% open space. They're doing 13. If you count all, that's qualifying open space. If you count all open space, it's 16, which is quite a few acres. This development has a very large amenity package that the developer can talk on more. So it is that give and take. It's what council believes is fair and what the request is. If you think that is too small, that is a good conversation with the developer, and maybe you can change that.
And I appreciate that, and I think that's why I said it's rhetorical, but I do think we need to keep it in mind. Going through the packet, I love the way this looks. I mean, the fire pits and the community garden built into it. I actually went through it. I love so much of it, but I do want us to keep thinking this through And I'm looking forward to, our developer coming and sharing with us, but thank you, Alex.
Of course. Any other, yes, Counselor Denver?
Okay, I may ask you to throw your colleague under the bus. He just talked about some code revisions that we were talking about with buffering and more common area, and would this comply with what you're trying to pass here in a couple of months?
From my talks with Joe and the director, we believe that the open space on this development is actually something that some developers should strive for. It has been a good example, and from my reading of the code, because I helped review it, this would meet our qualifications.
Any other questions for staff this time? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. So we do have only one person signed up to speak on this matter, and that is Patrick Connor, the applicant, who's obviously is in favor of the request. So Patrick, if you don't mind stating your name for the record, and then you will have 10 minutes for your presentation, and I'll let you know when you have a minute left to begin wrapping up.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, thank you for having me tonight. Let me just test this out. Perfect. Okay, thank you. My name is Patrick Connor. Address is 701 South Allen Street, Meridian, Idaho. Thank you, Alex. I think you did a good job summarizing it, and hopefully I can answer any questions that you all have, and obviously stand for follow-up afterwards. So this project is the Greenmont South PUD application. We're asking for an annexation with the PUD R2 zone and the preliminary plat approval for 333 single-family lots. It says 334. We had to make an amendment to fit in a turn lane. And over 13 acres of qualified open space and 16.9% of the total project. So before I kind of get into the project, just want to tell you kind of conceptually kind of how we approach this. The vision of our company is to be a sustainable force for unwavering good for people's lives, and our goal is to make every person's home their sanctuary. What does that mean from a land use perspective? It starts with building a community that offers an opportunity for people in all stages of life. So first-time home buyers, young families, growing families, folks that are looking to downsize or maybe looking for something a little bit less maintenance. We're trying to provide that sort of opportunity in this community to have a broad spectrum of generations there. So here's the vicinity map. It's south of town, on the south side of town, surrounded by city limits, just south of the corner of Ustick in Indiana. Like Alex said, the Greenmont subdivision to the north and the Hochschild subdivision to the northeast were recently approved. The Greenmont subdivision is part of our project. It will be part of this project as far as connecting and HOA connection there. And this project also will complete the segment of Laster Lane between Indiana and Montana, which, as the TIS gets into, kind of helps with circulation in the area and connecting people to the elementary school and the high school off of Montana. This is just some parks and worship areas and schools in the immediate vicinity. This is an exciting project for me because it truly is an infill project. We have an opportunity to build this community, and there's all these services that are already there with the YMCA, the parks, some commercial that's coming soon along Ustick. The roundabout there functions really well. It's just a great location for this community, and we really stacked it with amenities and really trying to put everything we can to make this a great project for everybody. There's an existing community pathway that runs all the way from Valley View High School up to Ustick that connects behind the YMCA there. That's existing. It will connect to that. Again, the comprehensive plan, it is medium density residential. And when we talk to city staff working through this project, we were talking about how we would like kind of a variety of lot sizes to appeal to those different generations. And so we went down the path of the PUD. So the waivers that we are asking for really are to allow for that smaller lot size, at 4,000 square foot lot size, which is a 40-foot wide by 100-foot wide lot. And I'll get into more of that. But it allows for a decreased setback, 5 feet as opposed to 6 feet on the sides, and then 10 feet on the front. And then in exchange for these waivers or deviations from the code, we are providing additional common space and open space, particularly around these smaller lots, which I'll get into. As Alex said, this project is just over 4 units per acre, below the max of 12 units per acre allowable in the PUD, and it really does fit well as far as the density of the surrounding neighborhoods. Just to our west, it's 3.8 units an acre. To the south, it's 4.25. Hoshaw is upwards of 5 units per acre, and Greenmont to the north is 4.5 units per acre. And again, we're at 4.2. So looking closer at the project, these are the three lot sizes that we're trying to show you here. So what you see in green is the green space. The brown in the corners is our drainage areas, but also dog parks. So to start with, we'll talk about these alley load homes shown in yellow. There's 62 of them as shown in this plat. So this is that 4,000 foot wide lot. And the idea of this product, this housing product that we're trying to provide, is a lower maintenance home. So these homes are primarily lived in the front of the house. So they're front porch living. You have between 10 and 20 feet of your front yard. I'll get into more renderings later, but you don't have much of a backyard, maybe a back patio area, things like that. But it's really for your kind of lock and leave folks. Maybe you don't want to have to deal with a yard or have a swimming pool in your backyard, but you want to live in a community that has the amenities. You don't necessarily want to take care and maintain your house. We have our traditional home collection, 120 of them shown in red, and then our signature home collection, which is we look for more family life buyers, there in blue. And so that's kind of how it's organized there. We spent a lot of time figuring out where to put the green space, the amenities to allow a walkable community, so you can go to the parks and access the many amenities from wherever you are in the project. Here's a shot of some of the renderings of those homes, and then conceptual designs for alley load homes, which are yet to be fully designed, but we're working with architectural groups that do this nationally to create a good home on a smaller lot that is lower maintenance. This is just some concepts of what that kind of front porch living is like. Your home does open up on a green space. Some of them do open up on streets, but majority of them do have green space in front of them. I want to point out that each home will have a fenced-in front yard. So if you do have a dog, if you want to let them out, they have that fenced-in area. But if you want to get out of that area and go to the community gardens or walk on the pathways or whatnot, you have the opportunity to leave that area. But you do have an opportunity for hanging out on your front porch, having guests over and things like that. And it's more of kind of a communal sort of pod within this community. I understand it's not for everybody, but this is something that a lot of people are looking for and that we're seeing around the area. So talking about the amenities, I'll talk about the northern half first. So this thing is stacked, and we did a lot of research on what communities around this area and doing demographic research and what people really want. The number one thing that people always say they want on our research is walking trails and dog-friendly spaces. So we definitely have that. We have 2 dog parks in the North 40 and the South 40. We have a lot of integration with pathways throughout the project. Another big thing they asked for was picnic areas for outdoor gathering, community gardens, which I'll get into, fire pits and seating for kind of your casual interactions, and then lawn games, having a chance to play bocce ball or horseshoes or gaga pit. There's also natural play areas for kids. So the northern part does have a basketball court next to the community garden. I'll have some renderings of those later. A natural play area, I have renderings of that later, but it's really a tot lot that has more undulation in the ground, built-in slides, climbing areas, things like that, kind of more interesting and more fun for the kids to play with as opposed to just a, simple tot lot just in the middle of the project. The southern half has 2 pickleball courts, another large play area, gaga pit, again, community gardens kind of around the project, fire pit area there. One thing that this council said to me before is they would love to see a large play area, at least an acre in size for your, backyard football game or baseball or flying a kite, snowball fight, whatever. We do have 2 acres of that large play area on the south side of the project. So there's some renderings of that natural play area that I alluded to, that we're really excited to put in this project, and it's going to take some earth movement to make it happen, but we really think it will stand out in this community and hopefully be replicated. There's another shot of it built in that area. This is the large community garden there on the north side of the project. The land will be owned and operated or owned by the HOA, but we envision there being a committee on the HOA that is kind of in charge of managing the community gardens, if a family could buy, a box, and that can be their garden, it can be a place where people come together, trying to plug people back into their roots of gardening and honoring the heritage of this area as being an agricultural area as well. These have been wildly successful in other areas. They build community, they get people out of their homes, and they kind of instill some sort of value in being connected to the land. Pickleball, obviously everyone's talking about pickleball. I played last night. We're definitely going to have it here. It's all the rage these days, and I think it definitely appeals to older people that want to get out and do something active, but it's very, communal and fun and competitive. Again, here's a shot of that large ball field on the south side of the project, which is 2 acres in size. We do have kind of casual outdoor things. This is a bocce ball pit, and then a trellis with some hanging out space. Just trying to get people outside and working, talking together, trying to build community. That was kind of the main aim for this project. Picnic tables, fire pits, that we've seen some success in projects that we have in Meridian, and horseshoes as well. Can't forget about the dogs, our 4-legged friends. Got to make sure they have a space. So we have 2 fenced-in areas in the north corners of the site that will have kind of a dual entry. So there's some safety there, so dogs don't escape, with pet way stations. Just showing how this project integrates with the Greenmont project. We just submitted our construction plans for that project. Like I said before, this will be part of, they'll share the same HOA, they'll have the same access to the amenities. This project was intended to integrate with that. On the far north side, there will be community commercial there, that on the corner of Indiana and Ustick. Just some features when it comes to our home building side and how we design our homes. We focus on energy efficiency, finding places for folks that work from home or need a space to get away and do homework. Trying to make a home oasis with conscious comfort and soothing spaces. Our design center is getting rejuvenated, as always, to match folks' tastes these days, and it's a place where people come and make their home their sanctuary. So with that, I stand for any questions you have on the project, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Patrick. Questions?
Can we-
Actually, Council Register. Her mic
Right.
pulled down.
I just have a simple question, maybe for staff, actually. Is there a reason why the zone changed? Is it changing from a 1 to a 2? Or always been a 2? Trying to...
Morgan, BSA Planning and Zoning. It includes an annexation, so when they are being annexed into the city, they need to choose a zone, and they are choosing the zone based on what is identified in the comprehensive plan. And so the city's current comprehensive plan identifies this land as, when it's annexed, it should come in as R2, and so that is what they are requesting.
So if they decide not to build there and they sell it, and it becomes an R2, and somebody else comes in and says, well, I'm gonna build duplexes now, they have to come back before council, right?
Can I come, or do you guys?
Yeah, and there should be a condition. If not, you can add it that says that was presented, what needs to be built. Otherwise, they need to come back and ask for modification.
Well, I just
Council-
seen a lot of the stuff that's being approved is now for sale. So if that happened in this case, and this developer decided not to go through with the project, and we've now changed it to an R2, what I'm seeing more and more is that they come in here, they get it changed, and then they go advertise it for sale, saying it's already been approved as an R2. But the next guy that buys it either has to do the plan that came up with, or come before council to get an approval to do something different. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's kind of what I needed to know, because I just see a lot of people selling it after they get approval. So is your developer planning on developing here?
Yes, Councilman Register, 100%. We want to do this project as quickly as we can. We have our engineer ready to go on the plans. This particular project, I mean, we're asking for the PUD R2 zone. I know that the preliminary plat obviously shows this concept plan, and every time we submit construction drawings for a phase, it needs to be in substantial compliance with the preliminary plat. My assumption, maybe you can clarify, but since it's if it was annexed in the R2 zone with the PUD, that PUD includes this concept plan?
Morgan Bisa, that is correct. So any future development, if they did not build this particular development, if they came in for a different PUD or a different preliminary plat, I mean, this would all come back before the council to evaluate that set of plans at that time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is a project that we are all super excited about and that we want to be a marquee project in Caldwell. I can't predict the future, but we're ready to go, and you know, in case the world ends, it will happen, so.
Thank you.
Hopefully.
Councilor Doty?
Just a quick comment. Years and years ago, when I was a young, struggling police officer, I lived in not nearly as nice as a subdivision of this up in Moscow, but this same concept with the open space in the middle. The goal is that you're not purchasing as much land now. I'm not sure that matters anymore, the price of houses now, but that was the goal, is that, and we had all age ranges in there. It's certainly a different type of living, but it certainly helped me out at a point in my life when I couldn't afford much more than that. So I like the concept.
Thank you.
Councilor Stoddard?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, what kind of, price range are we talking about here? Do you have any guess on that?
So I can't say exactly. I don't know exactly the range. I will say that our hope is that the alley load homes are as affordable as possible, given that, like I was alluded to, the smaller amount of land. Obviously, it's not going to be. I mean, they'll still be well amenitized and nice homes, but they do have opportunity for more of an entry level buyer as well as a smaller. I don't want to put a number out there right now, but the goal is always to be, right now, at least this year, it's been below $400,000. That's kind of that's as low as price can get based on how things cost these days. So, and our goal is always to be, we're kind of a volume builder. We're trying to build these things out as not as quickly as we can, but it is kind of our business model. I didn't talk about this, but the phasing plan, essentially there are 4 phases in this project. The first phase, and this is a big decision, something I advocated for, is we'll include that large park that you see in the top left-hand quadrant. So that first big park will come in with that first phase.
Okay.
And then hopefully we can build a phase each year. So, 333 lots, that's around, 80 or so lots in a phase, or maybe that's not right. That's close. So, the goal is to be there. So I didn't really answer your question, but we're trying to be as affordable as we can to appeal to as many buyers as we can, because that's important to us.
Okay, so how many phases do you anticipate then?
4.
4? Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Allgood?
Well, Councilor Stoddard got my question answered. That I was curious about the phases.
Okay. Councilor Dentenberg?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. First of all, this is a pretty project. It's appealing to look at. It's appealing to read through the portfolio, and I think it's housing that we definitely need in our community. But I would be remiss if I didn't reflect back on some experience that I had way back in the mid-90s and working with the city of Boise, that this open area looks remarkably a lot like areas that the neighborhoods couldn't afford long-term to maintain, that they eventually asked the city of Boise to take over as a public park. This is a very costly open area, and your commitment is to keeping it up and running?
Correct. Yeah, it's owned and maintained by the HOA. There is a lot of green space. We don't have high cost things like a community pool, splash pad, things like that. Cost a lot of money, a lot of insurance costs there. Really, it's a lot of landscaping. The community gardens, we will rely on the homeowners to be part of that and maintain those pieces of it. But with 343 lots sharing the cost of this acreage, it is something that we're prepared for. And this isn't too far off of the amount of open space that we typically have and see. So to answer your question, yes, I mean, this is something that we want to provide, and it is kind of part of being the community. And yeah.
Any other questions over here? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Patrick. As mentioned, Patrick is the only one signed up to testify in this matter, so I would unless there is any additional questions for Patrick, after we close public testimony portion, you will not be able to ask him any other questions. Okay, then a motion to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. Motion from Counselor Williams and a second from Counselor Stodic. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, then that moves that into discussion of council. You can ask questions of staff, and any motions as well are appropriate anytime.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Williams.
I really like this project and I hope it succeeds. I hope this becomes a marquee example of something we can begin to see more of in the city of Caldwell. In spite of my comment toward objections, I think we ought to even allow more of the townhome type of thing, which would eliminate the setback altogether. But having said that, let me make a motion. If we can get a second, we can still have discussion, but let's move it along. I move that based on the consideration of all records, evidence, testimony, facts presented, applicable codes, standards, approved criteria specified within Caldwell City Code in making their findings and decisions to the City Council, and the Caldwell City Council hereby approves the request for annexation, plan unit development, and preliminary plat to include the condition of approvals as outlined in the staff report. And I don't believe I heard any other considerations from the council, so that's my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second? So we do have a motion from Counselor Williams, and there's a second from Counselor Dittenber for approval of the annexation, PUD, and subdivision request. Discussion on that motion.
All I want to say very quickly is, I'm still a huge proponent of responsible growth and making sure that we're looking forward towards the future and that we have everything set up, but I prefer this kind of project over more multi-housing taking up all the infill space, so that's all I want to say about that.
Very good. Any other discussion? Yes, Counselor Allgood.
I just wanted to make sure, and I think it's addressed, but I just want to make sure on Counselor Register's question earlier, that there's language in there that if ownership changes, we would see it. That's confirmed.
That the project would be the same regardless of who
Yes,
develops
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Can you confirm that, Morgan or Alex?
Even if the project's sold, whoever purchased it would have to comply with what you see in front of you this evening, or they would have to come back before this body for new entitlement.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, very good. So then we do have a motion for approval. With that, we'll bring that forward on the screen, and it is open for voting. Counselor Allgood's battery's dead. Okay. We can just do a voice vote on that one. So, we'll go ahead and reveal the votes, and we'll have Counselor Allgood. Oh, there we go, right there. So right before we did it, so, yeah. Okay, so that motion does pass unanimously, for approval. Okay, so do I have a motion to close this public hearing item?
So moved.
Second.
So motion from Counselor Register and a second from Counselor Stodic. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. So now that moves us into action item number 2. This is more or less a housekeeping item regarding the annexation request. So this is the bill and ordinance for finalizing the annexation 23-21 that was just approved. Do we have a sponsor of this bill and ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, I'll sponsor Bill number 7, ordinance number 3569, approve the summary for publication.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
So a motion from Counselor Williams, and then a second from Counselor Stodic for passage of bill number 7, ordinance number 3569, requesting to move for its passage by title only and approving the summary for publication. All those in favor say aye, or do we have it? Sorry, there we go. Okay, so it is before you, and voting is open. For all goods worked good that time.
Yep.
Got up quick. Okay, so all votes are cast, voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously as well. And we can take a break if you like. Okay, so we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back with action item number 3.
We had the same thing going, Jeff, or so.
Oh, good. Way to jump in with those quick Hello, testing, yep, we are back. Okay, so we are back from our 5-minute recess, and we are on to action item number 3. This is, consider a request for reconsideration of case number TE, which is time extension 23-19. This is for a time extension and plat renewal for the Canyon Crossing subdivision preliminary plat. Mr. Hilty, it is all you.
Mayor. Good evening, council. This is a request for reconsideration. You may recall, I think it was the second meeting in March, March 19th, where this request on Florida came before you for a time extension on a preliminary plat approval that was denied. This is a request to have you reconsider that. This is an unusual proceeding, and I want to explain a little bit that these don't come before you very often. Reconsiderations are something that are provided for under the Local Land Use Planning Act, but there isn't really any guidance as to how you process them. The city's ordinance does not provide an automatic right to another hearing. That is something that is discretionary with the city council. What it provides is this opportunity tonight, which, with my apologies, is an opportunity for you to make a decision about whether you're going to make a decision. And the reason we break it down is so that, A, not everybody can come back and have a reconsideration hearing. There's this gatekeeping process that we have to go through tonight. Further, and this is where this becomes a little bit different than what you're used to, because you're not going to consider the merits of it tonight, you're just going to decide whether you want to do that at a public hearing. This hasn't been noticed, which means those that were in opposition to this application have not been noticed. They're not going to be here tonight, and if they were here, they wouldn't have an opportunity to be heard. The developer's attorney is also here, but they don't have an opportunity to be heard. And the reason we do the ordinance that way is because it gives you, as council, the opportunity to decide whether you're going to reconsider this without fully getting into all the merits and renoticing it and having de facto another hearing anyway. But it also respects the right that those in opposition have, a due process right to notice and an opportunity to be heard if the matter is going to be reconsidered. So, with that said, really what your ordinance contemplates is that you will base your decision not on anything that you hear tonight, you're not going to receive any testimony or evidence, and truly not on discussion that you have, but really on the request that you received, which was in your packet, written by the applicant's attorney. There are grounds under which you could reconsider, set forth in your city code at section 10.312 subsection G. One of those is where there is new evidence for the record or changed circumstances. There is some of that in the letter regarding the investment that has already been made in this phase 2. Another reason you could reconsider is because there was a decision made in violation of substantive law. There is also that argument. My request is simply this: based on what you've looked at, make a decision on whether you're willing to consider this again. If you're willing to consider it again, it does not mean that you're going to approve it. It just means take another look. I would offer this as a standard. If you see things in that letter that are of concern, if you see things that you think may warrant another look, if there are some things that you were unaware of or concerned about on the legal side, the fact that you have those questions is probably a good reason to go ahead and have another look at this. So recognizing that this is an unusual proceeding, I would ask you not to engage in a bunch of discussion, which again, we have people who are not noticed to come here and hear it. But I would certainly stand for questions you have.
Good, thank you so much, Mr. Hilty. So just kind of to clarify, make sure we're on the same page. So it is not, there's no decision on the time extension itself tonight. This is simply just to review what was submitted by the applicant, and to determine, for the council to determine whether it merits reconsideration. And again, if they do decide that, it does not mean that they're going to approve it or to deny it. It's simply stating that we feel that it's appropriate for this to come back, and then that would allow for notifications to go out to property owners in the newspaper like required by law for that to be set for a public hearing. Then that would come to council with the discussion, with testimony for them to make a decision at that time.
Sure, notice to everybody the way the original one was done.
Okay, very good.
Mr.
So, yes, so questions for Mr. Hilty?
Yeah, so if this is a no, what happens?
Then the original decision would stand. and the developer would have to determine how to proceed without a plat extension.
I'm sorry, to proceed without what?
Without a plat extension. That might mean filing a new plat application, or it might mean judicial review. They might take this to court, based on the legal theories that are in the letter. Those would be, I think, the two options that the developer would have to consider.
Other questions for Mr. Hilty?
Mr. Mayor,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Hilty, if I remember correctly, I am getting a little old. This project was considered back in 2016, and it just seems like it's been going on forever, so.
There is a timeline in that letter that's in your packet, yes, and I think that's when it started.
You know, we've discussed this before relative to projects that just seem to go on and on and on and never get finished, so I just wanted to make sure I confirmed that. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Councilor Dittenberg.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Hilty, at some point, if we choose not to hear this, or we choose not to allow another extension, the developer can still come back with another plan and start the process over, is that correct?
Councilor Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to be clear, you said this is highly unusual. In my long time on the council, I don't ever remember this happening. But I would be concerned that we make precedent out of this as well. So there are other options for this developer should we decide not to hear this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hilty? Okay, so maybe one last before we let you go. So as council deliberates on this, you said that it's necessary to stick to what's before for the reconsideration, not get into lengthy discussion regarding the merits of the case, things of that nature. Is that correct? It needs to be focused on the reconsideration and the letter that was submitted by the applicant. Would that be a fair
Yes.
statement?
Yeah, correct. That's how the code reads, and it reads that way on purpose.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Mr. Hilty? Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Okay, with that and that explanation, again, if a question does come up, Mr. Hilty is still available for that. But again, this is a request for reconsideration of the time extension TE 23-19. I think, Mr. Hilty's explained it very well in regards to what is under consideration, the letter that you have all received in your packet, and should have had the chance to review that. And if you have any questions in regards to that letter, anything of that nature, Mr. Hilty is available for that, or also for any motions on what you feel is appropriate in the matter to move forward with this case.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Okay. Yes.
I move to deny the request for reconsideration for TE 23-000019 for MTP acquisitions.
So, quick question, Mr. Hilty. I know, like, in a denial of like a quasi-judicial, you have to give kind of some reasonings for it. Is that the same on this, or can it be just as simple as that, or do we need to have reasonings on it?
The way I read our code is it's discretionary as to whether you reconsider, right? If you were denying it on the merits of the application, then you certainly would have to comply with standards.
But it is a little different.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I figured. I just want to make sure. Okay, so we do have a motion from Councilor Register.
Second.
And a second from Councilor Doty, for denial of the request for reconsideration for case number TE 23-19. So just to ensure everybody knows, so your vote in favor of this is denying the request for the reconsideration on that. So if you do vote in favor, you're not voting for the reconsideration, but for the motion to deny the reconsideration. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, then the voting is open. Just doesn't.
My buttons are not working on the computer either, so it's just a thing.
Oh, there it goes. Okay, all votes are cast. So voting is closed, and so the motion does pass unanimously. And again, the motion was to deny the reconsideration. So it does deny action item number 3, the request for the reconsideration of case number TE 23-19. So that is sent for a motion to close this public hearing item.
So moved.
And a second?
Second. Motion
from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor Register. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes. Okay, so that moves us into action item number 4, and this is housekeeping item, this is for consideration of Bill 41, Ordinance 3602, and Bill 42, Ordinance 3603. Again, this is for annexing properties into the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District on that. So do we have a sponsor of these bills and ordinances?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Allgood.
I'll sponsor bill number 41, ordinance number 3602, and move for its passage by title only.
Very good. And then would that also include bill number 42, 3603, as part of that same
Yes,
action item?
yes, it includes both.
Okay, excellent. So we do have a motion for passage of these bills, Bills 41, Ordinance 3602, and Bill 42, 3603. Motion from Councilor Allgood. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second from Councilor Register. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, the voting is open. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. That moves us to action item number 5, consider resolution authorizing the execution of a MOU with the Crookham family for trees and signage at Sisters Park, and approve the expenditure in the amount of $919, not $919,000, that is correct, it's just $919.90 associated with such improvements. Julie, are you going to present on this?
Yes, I am. Julie McCoy, Director of Caldwell Parks and Recreation, 710 Irving Street in Caldwell. So what this is we have numerous properties around the city, particularly parks, where items have been donated over the years. In this particular situation, the Crookham family donated the land for both Brothers and Sisters Park, and they had donated a sign and some trees for Brothers Park, and they wanted to do this for consistency with Sisters Park. And we have started requiring MOUs for this type of thing that outline responsibilities and also give us a record of what happened. So when I'm not here in, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is, somebody's not scratching their head going, how did this happen and what happened with it? So this one, and actually the next item as well, it's a similar type of thing where we are, rather than just a smile and a handshake, we're creating something a little more official for these donations from the prominent families in the community.
Excellent. Sounds great. Any questions for Julie?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah. Councilor Williams.
How many trees have already been planted?
2.
2 have already been planted, so
Yes.
even though we're approving this now, it's already been done.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
they kind of just went ahead and pulled the trigger.
I would
yeah.
also like to note, if people don't know, that's why it's called Brothers Park, because the 2 Crookham brothers donated the land to the city, and so it's worth noting again and again, this family has contributed to the city. So I'm in favor of it, but it's anecdotal to me at this point.
Yes. Yes, and we've had that happen where people get excited and they move forward with something and it's discovered after the fact. So I'm trying to rein that in a little bit, but I'm not always successful.
Yeah, but still good to have it noted and on the record.
Very much, yeah. And that was
on it,
my
so.
thinking with this, like, well, at least we'll have a record of what happened.
Excellent.
So.
Any other questions? Okay, very good. Then this is before council for your consideration. Again, this would just be for, if you are in favor, a motion for approval of this resolution.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
So I have a motion from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor Doty for approval of this resolution. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. So that moves us to number 6. Again, it sounds like this is very similar. So it says the resolution authorizing the execution of MOU with the McCluskey family for a memorial site at Canyon Hill Cemetery, available to the public, and ratify the reimbursable expenditures of $2,274.20 for such improvements.
Correct, and this was a similar situation. I was out attending to some family needs when my mother passed away, and I came back and there was a memorial underway. So yeah, it's been a really good exercise to have all of these come at the time that they did, because it's been a good opportunity to educate staff on, we don't just go and do what the people are asking. We need to do these MOUs beforehand. So and these are both going to be great assets to the city. Well designed, well thought out projects. So yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to verify that it has, staff has it has been discussed with them, and this is the proper procedure protocol to ensure in the future they know how to handle these things.
Yes, they have. Yeah, we've talked about it, because I think that maybe they thought, because I was aware that these families wanted to do these projects, that meant that they could just go forward with it. And so we were able to discuss it and kind of educate them on what needs to be in place prior to moving forward with the project, and they've been really receptive of it and understanding that we can't just move forward with something because we've discussed it, that we need to go through this process first in the future.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Julie on this one? Okay, very good.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Do we have any motions regarding this resolution?
So moved.
Very good. And motion for approval? Okay, and do we have a second?
Second.
So a motion for approval from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor Stoddick. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, looks like the voting is up on the screen and voting is open.
Luck, Chris. Yeah, gotta hold my mouth right or something.
There we go.
I don't know.
Okay, so all votes are cast and that does pass unanimously. And that moves us into action item number 7, another resolution authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement with Ardura Group, Inc. for completion of the 21st Avenue Sewer Lift Station Bypass Project. Mr. MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This item is for design for a sewer line that was previously designed, but that we are looking at a different alignment for. So just a quick recap on the history. This is the project, the sewer line that started construction a couple years ago and went through downtown past the courthouse, and then on 13th Avenue, the contractor walked off the site. And so the project was never finished, and for the last year or so, we've been working with the attorney's office, working with their surety company to get the project fixed. In the meantime, we've identified that there may be an easier route on the other side of the railroad tracks from 18th to 21st by going straight down Main Street. And this would basically be cutting through some backyards, but maybe much easier than going down Arthur Street and impacting all of those residences on Arthur Street. And so we are evaluating this, and we have retained Ardura to take a look at this from a civil engineering standpoint and check the feasibility of slope and what the easements would look like for that kind of work. That's what this is for, and I stand for any questions.
Very good. Thank you so much. Questions? Councilor Doty.
Does this let the contractor that walked off the site off the hook if we change the location of where we're gonna put the pipe or?
No, so it is our intent that there's still gonna be an obligation on the surety company. And the way this whole thing evolves, we're not exactly sure how this is gonna end up. And I don't wanna say too much here. It could end up in litigation. We don't know what's gonna happen. We just feel from our standpoint, whether we end up covering some of the costs or there's some kind of mutual agreement or whatever, this may be a better option, and that's why we're exploring it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so this resolution is before council as well for any discussion or motions.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Doty.
I say that we approve the resolution authorizing the execution of professional service agreement with Ardura, is that how you say it, group, for completion of the 21st Avenue Sewer Lift Station Bypass Project.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Allgood for approval of the resolution. Any discussion on that motion? With that, the voting is open. All votes are cast, so voting is closed. And that motion passes unanimously. And that moves us into action item number 8. Consider a resolution regarding the suspension of the Arthur Street multimodal bike ped pathway project, including the existing agreement with Nassland Engineering for full design and bid package. Haley, I'm guessing you are covering this one.
Mr. Mayor, council members, yes, we decided to verb the memo and the resolution in this way just based off of the feedback that we've received from you all in past council meetings as well as from the open house. So the resolution that's in front of you today is to suspend the design that we have moving forward for the Arthur Street pathway that changes. Currently, the pathway is about 4 feet wide for pedestrian use, and it has some ADA compliance issues. And the project was to make it a multimodal pathway to connect all the way over to 21st Avenue. So, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
We're good, thank you. Any questions? Oh, sorry, yes, Raylan. Yeah. Yep, please.
So as you know, this project is majority funded by CDBG, which is our Community Development Block Grant. And there are some things you just need to know just in case. So with the CDBG funds, there are specific requirements that HUD requires, obviously. We have to do a 5-year plan. We have to do a 1-year plan, which this project is included in. It named specifically in those plans. So if we were to change or cancel, we'd have to redo those plans, which is fine. We're willing to do the work. It just takes time and staff time and money as well. So if we do cancel the project as well, we have to pay back what we've already spent, which is about $80,000. So that has to come from general fund. That's a requirement of HUD. So that is also an impact with this. There's also, we talked to our HUD rep to make sure that, like, we understand that projects get canceled. They're no longer something, but HUD, we're under a timeliness issue with them. So we're trying to spend those funds before we get penalized. We've already gotten 1 year that we're kind of behind. So if we have that second year, we could lose funding as well. So we're trying to make sure that we spend this. So if we do cancel, we will be in jeopardy of that timeliness again. To start a new project, it does take time. We have to do an environmental review. Like I said, we would have to change our action plan and our 5-year plan as well before we even started a new project. So those are kind of, with CDBG, the specifics about this project, so.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that information. There may be any questions for Raylan?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Was this project approved at some point?
So when council, it was always listed in the action plan, and then the design plans were approved. So each part of the project will always come forward. And so when the 5-year plan was approved, it was in there. When the 1-year plan, which has been before you guys last year and the year before, it's always been listed in there as well.
I'm trying to understand what we spent $80,000 on if the project was never.
That is the design for the project. So, and that is a specific resolution that was approved as well.
Do you know when that was approved? Or that was?
I don't have that timeline in front of me, so I don't know. I just know that's the total that we've spent so far. But it's been, I'm pretty sure within the last 2 years.
We have that written in the memo. So the resolution 269-22 was approved August 4th, 2022. That was when the city signed the agreement with Nasland Engineering to begin the design. So.
Yeah, Councilor Allgood?
Raylan? Yeah. Do you have any idea how much the total project value is?
So for the action plan, we've specifically set the total contract of the design aside, plus for construction. We've obligated $600,000, but we're looking at future years to obligate another $200,000. So it'd be about $800,000 plus the design for this project out of CDBG funds. And then the total project's about 1.2, if I remember right. So the rest would have to come from the city.
So, and maybe this we're gonna, so how much, again, break down the CDBG, about 800,000?
About 800,000 plus the design, so that's another 150,000, so.
So do we need to find, if we were to cancel this project, do we lose that budgeted money, or do we have to find some other project to point it at, or how does that work?
We would have to find another project, and it would have to qualify, and we would be required to pay back what we have spent to date, which is right now just under $81,000.
So.
Councilor Dinberg, did you have a question?
I'm sorry. Just while we're thinking, I'm sorry. Can that money then go to repair other sidewalks?
if they qualify for CDBG funds, there's specific requirements. Has to be environmental review, has to go through the low mod, so it's not every place within the city. And it has to, there can only be like elimination of slum and blight. So there's specific things within the CDBG, and it has to be listed in our action plan. So all of those, it's quite a process to spend CDBG and have those oversight.
Do you have a follow-up, Counselor?
I just don't remember ever seeing plans on this. I feel like did we?
Yeah, they would have come before.
I mean, besides the open house.
It's gotten more attention right now,
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah, so we brought the plans at the open house, but as far as bringing the plans to council, typically we wait to bring the plans to council until we have them finalized. So we told our engineering group to pause. They were about a week away from finalizing the construction documents. We told them to just take a quick pause so that we could get confirmation from council members. And then once those documents were ready to be bid for construction, that is the time in which we would bring the completed documents to council.
Yeah, I had a family thing, so I could not be at the open house, so I don't recall ever seeing them, but.
But it sounds like in August of 2022, I believe, is when they did come, that resolution to council
Yeah,
for
so
that approval.
in August
completed
2022 is when the
plan
resolution came for the design to
Mhm.
begin for the
Yeah,
plan.
not so much the resolution, but the end result. I don't even have a visual of what this looks like, I guess is where I'm at.
Counselor Denber, do you have a question?
Mr. Mayor, Raylan, I have a couple questions if you're okay fielding them. First of all, when you talk about the plan, we're talking about a federally approved action plan or a federally approved plan that you collect input from the city council, and you approve it to HUD, and then they approve it.
That is correct. So when we do the action plan, the one-year plan goes through a whole bunch of data analysis. We have to do public hearings on it, public meetings on it, and then we do bring it to city council to be approved as well. And then it does go to HUD to be approved so that we can actually receive our funding. We don't receive our funding if we don't have that plan into HUD by a certain date.
So the follow-up question is, so city council at some point in 2022 approved the action plan.
That is correct, and in 2023.
Okay, so the action plan has been approved by city council and it's been approved by HUD. So we are kind of bottlenecked or whatever into this project.
That is correct.
Okay. I have a couple more questions.
Yeah. Mhm.
So in order for us to punt this project away, it's gonna cost us $80,000.
Yes.
And how much to complete the project?
So for HUD, it would be from CDBG funds between $600,000 and $800,000, and then from the city about $400,000.
So it's still a considerable contribution of $400,000 from the city.
It is.
Have you had any indication whatsoever that Arthur Street was the only place that it could be done? I mean, I'm familiar with the HUD impact studies and the environmental studies, but I'm gonna let you answer that question.
So I think when Arthur Street was chosen, it was a specific low mod, specific area. And so I'm sure there's other areas within the city that this same pathway could be if we identified it. It's just going through that data collection process and the public hearing process and all of that to figure out what is the best area for this if it's not Arthur Street.
Would we lose any money? Would the city lose any of their federal funding if this was postponed a couple years?
If we don't meet our timeliness, we could potentially be under very bad scrutiny with HUD, so.
My reason for asking this question, I'm just doing mental math here. We give $80,000 back to HUD, and if we're penalized in the future, are we penalized $50,000, $100,000? What's your best guess that we would be penalized based upon utilization?
There's no penalty if we have to give the money back. So there's not a penalty. That HUD's not going to charge us the penalty. The penalty will become because we're not spending our funds fast enough enough because we've been saving them for this project. So we have 3 years of funding that we've been saving for this project because we only get about $400,000 a year in CDBG funds. So we've been saving, and you can only save before HUD says, no, you have to spend it, you're required to, and if you don't spend it, we're gonna take it back. And that's the pressure we're under now, because we've been saving for this project, and if it doesn't happen, then we could lose the last grant, which is about $400,000 left in there, so.
Okay, any other questions? Councilor Sadek?
Just some comments, Mr. Mayor. When we walk the city and look at all our sidewalks and everything, I can't help but think that that wouldn't qualify. And maybe I could be wrong, but I think that should be a priority over this project.
So I understand where you're coming from. So if we were to repair a sidewalk, say it was in front of somebody's home, we have to work with the homeowner. That homeowner has to submit all of their paychecks, all their pay stubs, for everybody living in that household, not just the homeowner, but everybody living in that household. They have to qualify under the HUD guidelines. And then on top of that, that homeowner has to follow federal purchasing, not the city. The homeowner has to get the contractor, has to follow federal purchasing, has to get a UEI number, which is a 6-week process. They don't want to do that. So for us to do something like that, it's a lot of work and a lot of time with the homeowner, and it becomes very painful for them because it's a lot of back and forth, and we wouldn't get enough done in enough time. So.
Okay. The only other comment I have then is, I know we had the open house and all the feedback I've got, probably 10% were for it and the rest were against it. It was a large number of this project because it just goes to nowhere. And, that's all I have to say.
Councilor Cody?
Yes. So, a couple of things. I'm a little frustrated because I think Councilor Dittenberg sent out an email to maybe Mr. McDonald encouraging council to walk this area in separate groups so that we weren't certainly forming a decision or having too many people in violation of an open meeting law. But I was fortunate enough to walk around it with Councilor Dittenberg. And to me, it doesn't matter really if we have to give the money back. There are so many places in this city where that $400,000 could go. If it's in the right of way, I understand what Raylan's saying about the owner, but we passed an ordinance that says we can claim emergency. I probably found 50 emergencies within a 30-block radius that would qualify according to ADA standards. So to me, the $80,000 to be paid back versus the $400,000 we'd have to add on top of that, without a project or with a project, the $400,000 will go a lot further, to me, in areas that we need it. We have schools that don't have sidewalks. I'm not saying Arthur didn't have its own problems when we walked down that. That's certainly true too. But clearly the one we found, the major one was on Blaine Street, which probably wouldn't qualify because I doubt Blaine falls under the low income or the guidance that you just provided. However, I just think it offsets itself enough, and hopefully that we may be able to get a plan in place. But to me, public safety is the priority. Having a nice path that goes from 10th to 21st, or using Councilor Stoddick's words, to nowhere, is a nicety to have, but we have so many places in the community. We only walk, like I said, 30 blocks maybe, Councilor Dittenberg? And probably half of the sidewalks there need replaced or repaired, or they're impassable. So for me, it's a no on the pathway. I know it'll create more work if we want to begin a new project, but either way, giving the money back or spending the $400,000 that's allotted to me in city right of way, claiming it's an emergency. We have plenty of emergencies out there, and so that's my thoughts on that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Dittenberg, do you have additional?
I've got a couple more thoughts, if that's okay.
Yep.
So Raylan, I got a couple more questions, I'm sorry. So, what makes the pathway down Arthur qualified or eligible? Because we're still going in front of people's lawns, in front of their driveways, where it would be more difficult or troublesome on Blaine. What's the difference between the two?
I haven't done all of that analysis, and I haven't worked with Dominique, but I would think the biggest thing, I mean, I think there's both both those options. I don't know if the city owns the right of way on Blaine or not, the same way it does on Arthur. So there's a lot of unknowns. I think it would, if similar factors, similar low mod income, similar all of that, that was on Blaine, we probably could do the same thing and move it. It's just whether that data is there and qualifies it.
Okay, now I've got some comments to
Yeah.
make. All right. So, Councilor Doty and I took a walk, 30 blocks, and probably half of those 30 blocks are impassable. I mean, impassable by cyclists, impassable by anybody in an assistive device, a wheelchair, and probably impassable for somebody who's had knee surgery and is walking with a walker or with a cane. And I looked down Cleveland Boulevard and I looked down Plain, and they're beautiful streets. They're really appealing. They're the streets that get people in our community and the streets that get people out of our community. And if you could call HUD, their office out of the Portland office you report to, the CDBG office, the Community Development office, and call them and throw the city council under the bus. Tell them we just can't, and plead for them to provide you with some sort of technical assistance to see if we can't use that money on Blaine Street or Cleveland, because I just want to see a beautiful street become even more beautiful. Having said that, I think the Arthur Pathway is a beautiful plan. It's okay. It's just I have a hard time, probably like many other people, ignoring the historic district, ignoring some pretty beautiful entryways into our city for something that's out of sight. So, sorry.
No. Any other discussion or any, I don't think we've had a motion yet, have we?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have a question,
Mhm.
2 questions.
Yep.
And maybe I'm the only person in the room that doesn't know this, but how do we, with the exception of the emergency thing that Councilor Doty was talking about, is there any way for cities to take back the sidewalks so that you don't have to go through that approval process with the homeowner? Or like, how does the city get the right of way, I guess, if that's what happened on Arthur? Is it feasible to do that, like in front of the places that they've been talking about?
So,
Well,
yeah, and we do have, those are all within right of way on Blaine.
so
Yeah, I see your head nod, sorry.
Arthur's kind of a complete, so it's like block by block, and so it's very specific on that. But if we're doing just this portion of sidewalk right in front of the homeowner's house,
But-
we have to link it to that homeowner.
Is it possible, I guess that's a head nod from Rob, is it possible to get the right of way for these places that they're talking about maybe reallocating that money? If I guess what I'm getting at is,
Yeah.
if the project is redesigned as fixing, sidewalks within the city, or however you have to do that, without having to go through the process that you were talking about before, is it possible to get the right of way to do those repairs that have been identified by the other counselors?
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Register, all of the sidewalks are in public right-of-way already. They're not on private property. But the city ordinance requires that property owners maintain all of their sidewalk. Whether that is an option, or what Mr. Dittenberg was saying about trying to get maybe CDBG or HUD to be able to be flexible and let us use the funding for that, that would be a question for them and probably Dominique. I am not even gonna begin to try to speak for
What's
that
the
agency.
danger in changing the ordinance if people aren't able to take care of their sidewalks anyway? Like, I'm just asking, but like, if my sidewalk goes, cracking, well, that's what I'm curious about.
And I wonder, I
So-
think, and
'cause
correct me if I'm wrong, Raylene, so the reason for the one is that it's the entire stretch, 10th to 21st. And so I think the thing that Raylene was saying is if you're picking this house, bypassing these two, picking the next house, that's where you're starting to pick and choose rather than do. So if you did like from 10th to 21st on Blaine, it's a different story, doing the entire sidewalk, whether it's bad or not, or just picking and choosing. Is that more or less correct, Raylene?
Could you
Yeah.
put something in the ordinance though that says that the homeowner is required to maintain it, but then the city can, like you were talking about, the city can step in and do repairs?
Well, the city can already do that.
Okay.
We don't want to be in a position of owning and maintaining everybody's sidewalk. That would be a bad position for us to be in my opinion. And so I don't know that we want to change any of that. I think the better option is to reach out to HUD and see if they can be flexible on the funding and the way that the funding can be used. And just going back real quick to what the mayor said, the reason this corridor was picked was because it connects to the creek. The 10th Avenue underpass comes up right there on Arthur Street, and it was supposed to continue down to connect the fairgrounds to downtown. And I know there's no crossing on 21st Avenue, but that someday could be fixed with a signal or some sort of actuated crossing. And so that was the intent of the alignment. I don't disagree. There's a lot of other sidewalk issues, and if we could apply CDBG funds to those, I think that would be great. But there's, you know, anytime you're asking for federal funding, there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, and sometimes it's not even worth it. And so if you can use it all on one big project, that's a lot easier than trying to use it on a lot of separate small projects.
Thank you.
Perfect, okay.
And then my second question was, is the public allowed to be heard on this? I saw Mr. Pilot shaking his head with some of the numbers, so I'm curious what he has to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a resolution, so there's no sign-up sheet, but if Mr. Pilot wanted to address it, we could allow for him to come forward and.
Thank you.
Yeah. I believe he has some property close by there, or not too far.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. It actually starts at our office on 11th. For the record, my name is Rob Pilot at 1102 Arthur. And I'd also like to submit for the record, given the evening we've had, that only council member register and the mayor can respect this, but I got a fresh haircut today, so the rest of you obviously don't have that problem. So I had a full thing ready to go. I have a lot on my list of areas that have no sidewalk, let alone damaged and emergency, but I punted here real quick just to give you some perspective. So the overall project, from the math I just came up with, and you're welcome to follow me along with your calculator, is 1.2 million for 10 blocks. So that's $120,000 a block. So if you lose the funding, you still have your $400,000, which buys you 3.3 blocks. But you'd be putting in 4-foot sidewalk instead of 10-foot sidewalk, which is 2.5 times the width of a standard city sidewalk. So you'd be able to do 8.3 blocks with $400,000 of 4-foot wide, anywhere you wanted to, as opposed to an amenity that, while is beautiful, really I can't justify as being necessary. I mean, I think it's a bit of a fiddling while Rome burns situation if you build a beautiful sidewalk for 10 blocks and then trip over the one half a block down. So that'd be all I have, but I think my math's right, but I just did it in the back, and I went to Caldwell High School.
Say it's Caldwell math, so of course it's
Exactly.
not Valley View. No, so we doubt
Well, I
it
was
if
staff
it's
for any
that.
comments.
So, okay, thank you so much, appreciate it. Okay, any other, discussion or questions for Raylan or Haley, or any motion? I don't think we've had a motion, so are any motions in regards to the proposal?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Doty.
that we deny the resolution regarding, I guess it is a suspension, so that we approve the resolution regarding the suspension, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Of the Arthur Street multimodal bike ped pathway project.
Okay, do we have a second? So we have a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor, Stoddard. Again, so the motion is for approval of this resolution, which is suspending, the Arthur Street multimodal bike ped pathway project on that. Any questions on that motion?
I do not have a question, but I do have a comment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would still like to see staff, negotiate with HUD and see whether or not, because giving up money is giving up money, and, if we're an entitlement community, we should spend our entitlement.
So I will just say, we have to, if you guys cancel it, we will have to talk to HUD anyway, because we will have to redo our action plan. We'll have to redo our 5-year plan. So you'll see those coming anyway. And then, you know, if we can realign it, we will try to do that. And then we'll have to figure out where that $81,000 comes from.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion, questions? Okay, with that, then the voting is open.
Almost, we're getting it. Come on. Good.
We can do it for you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Okay, we'll see if it pops again, so we'll go ahead and reveal it, and then we'll ask, for a voice
I'm gonna
vote.
push another button just to see what,
See if it works.
yeah, no,
That's not
none of
working
them
either.
work.
So, okay, so all votes for Bill one were cast, so all in favor, and Counselor Allgood, your
It was a
vote?
green.
Okay, so he was a yes as well, so that passes unanimously. Okay, so that moves us into action item number 9, finance report.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Counselor Register.
I move that accounts payable in the amount of $2,510,825.07, represented by check numbers 177-827 through 178-115, and payroll for the amount of $689,430.46, represented by check numbers 39398 through 39427, and direct deposits be accepted. Payments approved and vouchers filed in the office of the city clerk.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So a motion from Counselor Register, a second from Counselor, I believe it's Allgood,
Yeah.
for the acceptance of the finance report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, that moves us into our discussion item. This is regarding the city attorney comparisons, as was requested from Counselor Doty, looking at other Treasure Valley municipalities concerning in-house attorneys, versus contracted attorneys. As you're very well aware, we do contract with the firm of Mr. Hilty. The cities in the valley, there's Meridian and Boise that do have in-house attorneys. My understanding is Nampa is looking at going that direction. They've been looking at for a little while and proposing to move that direction within the next couple of years as they work through the process on that. So, reached out and got some of the information. Do you want to report on that, Raylyn? Or and then maybe stand for some questions on that. And Mr. Hilty as well is obviously available for any questions that council has.
So Meridian has, 4 attorneys, 1 city attorney and 3 deputies. The kind of average year pay right now for those city attorneys, $159,000. And then the deputy attorneys are $113,000. So that's just salary, that's not benefits. Idaho Falls, we asked them, they have a city attorney and a prosecuting attorney. And their city attorney is $125,000. And then their prosecuting attorney, seems like a fluke to me, but is $57,500 a year. So, but they do in-house prosecuting. They have that in-house. Boise has quite a bit more. They have a municipal attorney division and a criminal division. And then a city attorney. Their city attorney is $182,500. Boise has 34 attorneys, so quite a bit. And they have 4 levels on each one. So their criminal attorneys range from $99,300 to $153,600, and then the municipal attorneys range from $110,800 to $153,600. So that's kind of what I have researched and found so far, and then kind of the average of what each city has. So in our current budget, we have the retainer, and then we do budget $50,000 for in the general fund, and then police and fire each have an additional $50,000. Plus we pay the county for prosecuting attorney, which is creeping up. It's about, I believe it's almost $500,000 right now. So.
Very good. And what is the current contract with Mr. Hilty's firm? What's that amount that for this year we're in right now, this fiscal year?
Let me get it up here.
I was thinking it was like in the high 300s. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's I believe it's going to be, if I remember, $32,400. That's what I remember for this next year. $32,400 a month. $32,400 a month is what I believe it was.
Yeah. Yep. Please.
Sorry, Mark. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Mayor and council, we as this discussion cropped up, we did look at sort of what you guys are paying us. and it depends on when you count, right? So we looked at the last 12 months that ended with March of this year. That covered 2 different fiscal years. The fees that you paid us were, the money that went through my account was about $382,000. $20,000 of that was simply a pass-through cost for other legal services that was not paid to us. We then looked at current fiscal year, so since October, because there was an increase in our general retainer, and then took a 7-month period to get us through, I think, April, divided that on a monthly basis, and then projected it out, and it came out to about $394,000, which makes sense because there was an increase in our general retainer at the beginning of this current fiscal year. So you're at about $395 this year. The numbers that Raylyn was giving are true. There's a proposal for the $32,400, but I don't think that includes some of the outer retainer stuff that's ongoing. So if you multiplied that $32,000 by 12, you'd probably be a little bit low in terms of what the city's likely to pay total for the current fiscal year.
Okay, excellent, very good. Yes.
And how many, either one, how many hours a week does that buy us? Or month, whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. And I do have that. Let me grab it. This is for the next one.
Yeah.
So for the next fiscal year, that's based on 160 hours a month at $200 an hour. And again, that would be the general retainer, not the out of retainer accounts.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Hilty, does that include the Urban Renewal Agency too, or is that separate?
That's separate.
Okay.
Any other question? Yes, Councilor Allgood.
I do. Do we know how much we pay? How much does Urban Renewal pay?
I believe that's $62.50 a month.
Somewhere around there.
And that's $77,000, you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that will always be separate, right? That's not, urban renewal will still have to have.
It's a separate legal entity.
Separate from.
Yeah, so the Urban Renewal Agency would decide who their attorney is, and the city will decide who its attorney is.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I
No.
interrupted there, but.
No, you're good.
So that $200 an hour for that base retainer fee, doesn't take into account special services? I forget the verbiage of it.
Yeah.
Will that continue to be, or is that projected? I think it's at $195 an hour this year. Is that projected to be at $200 an hour next year as well?
Yes, so it's $195 this year, the hourly rate will be $200, is proposed to be $200 next year. The proposal really that we made was just to go to a flat $200 an hour for all legal services for the city. So we wouldn't have this in retainer and out of retainer distinction. We did offer it to the city to continue with what we've been doing, where we identify those unusual or out of retainer services, and then we, of course, get pre-approval before we start billing those. So we can continue to do it sort of the way we've done it in the past, or we can just kind of bag it and go with a flat $200 an hour. Most municipalities that hire outside counsel work on that arrangement. I think it's been beneficial to the city over the years for budgeting purposes to have a flat retainer, but we're good with moving away from it.
And I don't know if you know or if Raylyn knows, do we know what the previous 2 years were that we paid out? Was there an anomaly? Was there an outlier in those years?
I don't know off the top of my head, and I'd be happy to send the council.
I think it'd be helpful to know so that we're looking at a bigger picture rather than just this snapshot and what we're looking at
there
as a proposal.
Yeah, this isn't going to be a direct answer because I don't have the numbers with me. We certainly could produce them from our side too. One thing that changed significantly was when, under the prior police administration, That administration used our services very rarely, for better or for worse. That changed pretty significantly when Chief Ingram was hired. And so that came sort of in the middle of a fiscal year when that occurred. And then it ramped up in the months ending that fiscal year, and we realized there was an uptick in the demand for services. So that was reflected. I don't know if it's an anomaly, but there was a discussion about this time last year, how to deal with that. But you shouldn't see that anomaly again, right? I think that was the one thing that struck me as being different.
Any other, yes,
I
Councilor
just
Doty?
have some comments.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still stuck with my original proposal and my comments that I made before. I won't repeat them all here today. I think that in-house counsel, having someone in the office with everyone else 40 hours a week versus at an alternate site is a much more beneficial for our city officials, our city employees, as well as the council and the mayor. I believe when they send an email that it's answered quickly, or when you're passing each other in the hall, you can certainly remind each other that you're waiting on an answer for that, so that business can continue to move forward. And so I will just stick with my original comments. And again, I'm not looking for the lowest bidder here when it comes to legal counsel. I'm looking at what is in the best interest of the city. So I'll stick by my previous comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, again, this is just a discussion item, so there's no decisions being made tonight. It's just for discussion, informational, things of that nature. So is there any other discussion or any questions for Raylene or for Mr. Hilty?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Raylene, if we're going to discuss this again, and it sounds like we will, I'd like to know those other cities, you did some research. Did they still have to hire outside counsel for special projects? And what did they spend on those in addition to what they've budgeted? Because you've done some preliminary research to know what the salaries were apart from benefits for these attorneys. But if there were occasions when they still required outside counsel, was that frequent? What did that cost? If we were to make this decision, I'd want to make a full disclosure decision that says, while we're budgeting this much for in-house attorneys, we still should budget this much for outside counsel. And so if you could consider that, adding one more thing to your already full plate, now that you've got to deal with HUD and our 5-year plan, before we come back, and it may take you some time to get those, but I'd like to know so that as I make a decision, I can have more information.
I can definitely put that together.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's important, having the information. That's not something, I think that it's just a knee-jerk reaction, rip the Band-Aid off. Our city attorneys are a vital part of what the city does. And, as far as high risk goes, city attorneys, the police, the fire, those are all right at the top. And so I don't think it's something we want to rush into. We want to make sure, like I said, Nampa's been working on it, I think, for a little while, and I think they still have a year or two to go before they get to a final resolution on it. So just as they transition that way on that. And I know, and just other things, and this is just as discussion goes and for consideration, because I know in talking to Councilor Dittenber and Councilor Doty just mentioned, it is nice when you see, we're seeing that right now at City Hall, where we have, engineering and planning and zoning, city clerk, the mayor's office, we're all together at the new City Hall building, which is great because you get it to rub elbows, things like that. There's not room for a city attorney in the current City Hall. And so where would they go? Because it would be nice, just one second, on that, we would, I believe, need the third floor, which is, as you all know, is very difficult with TVCC. They held that lease through the end of the decade. They allowed us to come in under certain terms to amend that lease, which they held all the cards, so we kind of had to work with them extensively on that. And so they do have that lease through the end of this decade to try to get that third floor. So again, those just, things to think of, that rubbing of shoulders would be difficult, because if you did go in-house, now where in-house are they? Or where at City Hall could they go? If you're able to find room, do we have to rent office space close by? Then are we losing that interaction of what we're trying to get? So those are just things to consider as we do move through this and consider and discuss all the ramifications and things of that nature that could come with something of this nature. So, Councilor Doty?
Yes, so there is room at City Hall. We could turn the gym that hasn't had the equipment purchased for it yet into office space, which again, the gym's a nicety, but it's not required until we acquire the third floor. So, I believe there is room at City Hall. We would just have to change the proposed gym into office space. So I just wanted to add that comment.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a little unrelated, but Raylene, when you were quoting what we're paying for misdemeanor prosecution, that's significantly higher than previous years. Can you kind of give us an idea of what that increase has happened, what's happened there?
That increases whenever we give a COLA. Whatever that amount is, that contract increases that same amount. So, up to, I believe it's 5%. So if we give a 5% COLA, it increases 5%. If it's 3%, it increases 3%. So whatever COLA amount we give, that is the amount that it increases.
If memory serves me right, we were about 2.25 when we started this project.
It is definitely significantly higher, and it grows higher every single year.
Thank you.
Mayor? Yes.
Counselor Allgood, I agree. I hadn't even researched that figure yet, but it's certainly something, another thing to put on the table to see.
Yeah, that's.
What we can do there. It is generally infractions and misdemeanors. As you know, the county prosecutor still handles felonies, so it wouldn't go to zero technically, but.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate, putting those together, Raylene. I know Shelley, had a part on that too. She's not able to be here with us tonight, but appreciate those numbers. And Mark as well, appreciate the information and all that you do and your firm in helping us move along. So you've been a great asset, to the city for many years, so thank you for all of that. Okay, that moves us into council comments. Councilor Register.
Very quickly, do we do any kind of record keeping in the city, like on council votes, or is the only way to find those that you have to go through the minutes?
So Debbie is not here with us tonight. I don't know if Angie, okay.
We keep track, and, we use the data from the votes that are cast here, and so for every meeting, we have a list of the votes.
So if the public wanted to call, they could just call and find out, or request it, or whatever? Okay. And then, my other question, I would like to see if we could get, a count on all the multifamily buildings, specifically apartment buildings, I guess. Of how many we have here, how many are coming, and then the total of all the doors. Not necessarily every townhome, but multifamily, or, apartment, I guess what you'd consider.
So number that are, like, number of buildings?
Number of
And then the
buildings
number of doors.
that are
total that go
here
with that?
and that are coming, and then the total number of doors, yeah.
Okay, got it noted.
And then my last comment was, are we thinking about being in the 4th of July parade?
It's a good
With all
question
the
for your fellow
patronism.
council members, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, you guys.
Those signs in the garage.
I guess it's something to start thinking about if you
Car this year.
want to.
You know, so if you can come up with a car that you'd like to drive, all right.
Okay.
Rolling it out there.
Okay, no, yep, good to have
Horses
that
this
there,
year.
so.
Horses.
Well, if we could be pulled on a hay wagon.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, Councilor Stodic?
Yeah, Mr. McDonald's left, but I had a question. In between meetings today, I took a shortcut through, Sienna Hills, and I noticed that, city trucks and tree trimmers were in there trimming all their trees on Cirrus Road. And I'm just curious whether, do we contract our folks out to those people, or?
We do not. I'm looking at our city engineer, so I don't know. I mean, if it's in the right of way, typically, well, so is it, because in the right of way, when it's in front of your house, you're responsible. That would be unique where it's on a arterial or a collector road with no frontage on the house.
Yeah, it's right on Cirrus Road, be the backyards to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have to, I would imagine what the mayor said is correct, that if it's right of way, then we would be maintaining the roads. I'm wondering, are there any ditches along there that we would be trying to maintain, or?
No, it's
Anything
just
that's not like a main
sidewalk with a
roadway.
center divider, and then sidewalk on the other side, and then trees down both sides.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
Typically, we would only be maintaining the trees if they are within the right of way.
Because I'm in next subdivision next to them, I don't want to be selfish, but my goodness, have we,
Have them come over.
that might be a good problem solver for us, so, thank you.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely look into that and see, so, and yeah, we do not, they're busy enough trying to take care of our stuff, we don't contract them out. Because we've looked at contracting some of our stuff out if it's cheaper, so obviously we wouldn't put our guys out there, our guys and gals to do that, so. Okay, Counselor Doty?
I'm smoking enough tonight, I think, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Counselor Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're underway with paid parking. I believe there's another week of grace or trial or something like that. I would like to know, soon and along the way, how that's going. I'd like to hear from Car Park what revenues are looking like, how infractions are going. I'd like to know from our businesses what their response has been. And then, I was disappointed to know that the easiest way, maybe I haven't done it enough, but in my estimation, the easiest way to pay for parking was to scan the QR code and just use your phone, which means it's $1.55 an hour, not $1 an hour. So it's $1.55 an hour if you scan it and use it on your phone. So while we said it was gonna be $1 an hour, I don't carry quarters with me and I rarely have dollar bills. And honestly, when I was sitting in there and I had 7 more minutes before the hour was up, and just to see what would happen, I went ahead and approved the extension, and I got charged the fraction plus another fee on top of that fraction. So it's just ironic to me that the easiest and most convenient way to pay ends up being 50% more than what we were all told it would be. But I want to know early on how this is going and frequently how this is going, so that we can just stay up to speed on it.
Yeah, and we definitely have a report at the next council meeting to kind of see where it's at and how everything's looking, so.
That's
Thank
good
you.
information.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was the way it worked.
Counselor Allgood?
I don't have anything tonight, sir.
Very good. Counselor Denver?
Yes, I have a couple things. First thing I wanna chat about is kind of back to the right-of-way issue. It kind of has to do with our sidewalk issue. I didn't wanna, prolong the discussion. But we really have a lot of people with trees that are in the right-of-way. I mean, you can walk east and west somewhat, but you can't hardly walk north and south on any of the streets between Cleveland and Arthur. There's rose bushes, there's trees that are literally growing down. And so, can we have some sort of a public campaign from the city that reminds everybody that the sidewalks are supposed to be taken care of, and that we can remind them that you can't have things growing in the right of way? Because I think part of our issue is just apathy. We don't care, right? We get in our car and we drive, and I understand, the reasoning for the multimodal pathway, but we just have a lot of stuff in the right of way. It'd be nice if we said, okay, everybody from Cleveland to Arthur, from 11, send them all a letter. We've got their addresses. Surely we have the technology. Tell them to clean up the right of way. I mean, anything wrong with doing that?
Yeah, no, I don't think so, and I know our amazing public information officer is in the back, and so, I imagine she's taking notes already on that, so we could definitely work on some type of outreach, let the people know, when the monthly bills go out for utilities, there's always an area there we can put notices on, so we could do that, and then also even go above and beyond and do some type of an outreach program to make people aware, so.
So, on a side note, sorry.
I was just gonna add, because we walk that area, I think it's gonna take a letter to, it's good to put it out in all of those ways too, but something needs to be documented, right, and then sent to the.
And I would even suggest door hangers and,
door hangers.
On a related note, we're moving the big rice house. We're getting closer to moving that. And, we got permission from every single one of the property owners on Arthur except for 2 to come. And so, just a matter of chatting with them. It's pretty easy to chat with them, and then the final thing I want to chat about is last week I had an opportunity to go to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I took Robin Collins, Brian Kita, and Dominique, and we looked at some of the programs offered by the Catholic Charities up there. They have a good mix of different programs, and really of interest to every group I've ever taken up there was a welcoming center. where a vet can just go and get a shower, where somebody who is just not be able to afford, to make a dinner, can go in and grab a dinner and walk out. It's not a homeless shelter, it's just a place where somebody can go, grab a meal, grab a shower, get some free laundry done, and, I think, just so you know, I track of dates, when projects get wings, get legs. I'd like to bring that forward.
We have most of that at the vet center.
What's that?
We have most of that at the vet center,
I do.
showers and everything, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, is that all? Okay, very good. And I don't have anything this evening, so with that, it's time for a motion to adjourn. In a second, all those in favor? We stand adjourned.
Chuck, could anyone use that though, or is it just?